hearing on several bills that we are tackling in this joint committee hearing with the Committee on Labor, Employment, and Human Resources Development, jointly with Civil Service and Government Reorg, Foreign Relations, and the Committee on Finance. We'd like to acknowledge our members from the Senate virtually present with Senator Bato de la Rosa, Senator Bongo, our distinguished minority floor leader, Senator Frank Drilon, Senator Marcos, Amy Marcos, Senator Win Gatchalian, our majority floor leader, Senator Migs Subiri, Senator Francis Tolentino, and Senator Nancy Binay. A pleasant morning, dear colleagues. We would like to also put on record that today we are going to include Senate Bill number 1949. This is the certified measure filed by our distinguished colleague, Senator Bongo. This was certified by the President kailan? December 14, 2020. Before we continue, we'll ask the Secretariat to acknowledge our resource persons, guests virtually present. Secretariat.
Good morning, members of the joint committees. The resource persons invited by the committee are the following. From the Office of the Cabinet Secretary, Secretary Carlo Alexi Nograles. From the Department of Labor and Employment, Secretary Silvestre Bello III, and Mr. Rustico de la Fuente, representing the various labor attachés and who is also the labor attaché of Kaohsiung, Taiwan. From the Department of Foreign Affairs, Undersecretary Sara Lu Ariola, Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs, and Assistant Secretary Enrico Foss, Assistant Secretary for Migrant Workers Affairs. From the National Economic Development Authority, Undersecretary Rosemarie G. Edeleon, Undersecretary for Policy and Planning Group. From the Department of Social Welfare and Development, we have Assistant Secretary Glenda Rilova. From the Commission on Filipino Overseas, we have Secretary Francisco Acosta. From the Presidential Advisor on Overseas Filipino Workers and Muslim Concerns Office, Secretary Abdullah Mamao. And from the International Organization for Migration, Mr. Troy Dooley, the Program Manager and Head of Programs. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Comsec. Magandang umaga po. May I just give my opening statement. Muli ho, magandang umaga, magandang tanghali, magandang hapon, magandang gabi at hating gabi po sa inyong lahat. Dahil live po tayo, yan po ang minarapat kong pagbati upang maabot natin ang lahat ng ating mga kababayan saan mang sulok ng daigdig. 1 in 10 Filipinos live overseas. Kung nasa ibang bansa po lahat, nasa isang bansa po lahat ang ating mga kababayang overseas Filipino, ito ang magiging 91st most populated sa buong mundo. Mas malaki pa po kaysa sa populasyon ng Sweden, Austria, UAE, Israel o Switzerland ang bilang ng mga Pilipino sa ibayong dagat. Yun pong 2.1 milyong Pilipino na nasa Middle East as of June 2020, mas marami pa po kaysa 1.8 million projected population ngayong 2021 sa buong rehiyon ng Cordillera Region. Mas maraming Pilipino sa Japan kaysa sa buong Mandaluyong. Higit na mas malaki po ang populasyon ng Filipino community sa Canada kumpara sa populasyon ng buong probinsya ni Senator Amy sa Ilocos Norte o maging sa Ilocos Sur. Today, there are Filipinos in every time zone, every continent, and every sea. The sun never sets on the Filipino diaspora. We are virtually the world's human resource provider, from bedside care to artificial intelligence. As we speak, Filipinos are digging oil from the frozen tundras to the blazing hot suns of Sahara. They run kitchens from restos with Michelin stars that pamper the rich to eateries that serve budget meals to thousands of laboring masses that grind the mill. Hospitals everywhere also benefit from made in the Philippines talents. Amid the pandemic, Pinoy nurses are the world's frontliners against the coronavirus, caring for the sickest. It comes as no surprise as the Philippines is the largest exporter of nurses worldwide. Pati po ang mga classroom sa Amerika, Thailand, Japan at Mongolia, napasok na rin ang mga gurong Pilipino. In Arizona, Filipinos feel teacher shortages as more Americans become increasingly uninterested in teaching jobs. Because of Filipino household service workers, men and women in many countries can raise families while pursuing careers. Saksi po ako kung gaano karami at kahalaga ang mga Pinay household service workers sa Hong Kong. Bumisita po kami doon kasama si Senator Gatchalian, Senator Zubiri, Senator Angara. Kaya ho, it's not an exaggeration to claim that pulling all of them out would crush Hong Kong's economy. Because of Filipino professionals in companies, stores, factories, businesses, and hotels, startups thrived and earned profits. Because of Filipinos overseas, our country are prospered, lifting many out of poverty. At present, 12% po of the national income is the monetized sweat of the overseas Filipinos. These generous remittances buoy our economy up, keeping it afloat in times of economic headwinds. Noong 2019, umabot po sa 1.56 trillion pesos ang kabuang remittances ng mga overseas Filipinos. Ito po yung pinadala sa bangko at remittances centers. Mas malaki pa po ang halaga kung kasama po dito yung personal na inuuwi o ipinapakisuyo sa kababayang umuwi sa Pilipinas. Kung bibilangin po natin ang pasok ng salapi mula sa mga OFWs na parang metro ng taxi, ito po ay 4.276 billion a day, 178.17 million per hour, and almost 3 million pesos kada isang minuto. Totoo pong malaki ang ambag ng ating mga overseas Filipinos sa gross domestic product. Tunay nga pong dahil sa kanila ay naisakatuparan ang mga pangarap ng kanilang mga mahal sa buhay. Wala po akong duda na nakatulong silang palakasin ang ating rango bilang happiest country in the world. Subalit pagdating naman po sa personal misery index, number 1 po sila. Money sent can be measured but misery felt can never be quantified. May invoice po ang perang padala, pero wala pong resibo ang lungkot, hirap at pighati. There are metrics for the economic returns of migration but there is none for its social costs. Hindi pa po uso ang isolation, isolated na sila. Hindi pa man uso ang distance learning, hasa na po sila sa distance parenting. Missed routinely were not only birthdays, but the once-in-a-lifetime chance to walk a daughter down the aisle or to bid goodbye to a dying or already dead parent or sibling. Wala pong salaping katumbas ang ganitong kalungkutan. Let me give you more figures. The pandemic that continues to plague economies around the globe displaced more than 520,000 of our OFWs. As of July 2019, there were at least 14,532 Filipinos reportedly languishing in jails abroad. 68 of them are serving life sentence. Add to them the countless OFWs facing legal, health, psychosocial, and financial quandaries. In Kuwait, at least 3 Filipino household workers died over the last 2 years. Sino po ba ang makakalimot kila Joanna de Mafelis, Constancia Dayag at Jeneline Villavende na namatay matapos tratuhing masahol pa sa hayop ng kanilang mga employer? At dininig po natin ang kanilang mga kaso dito sa committee na ito. It is against this backdrop that this bill before us should be heard and weighed. Export of Filipino brain and brawn ought to be temporary quick fix and desperate economic solution. Pansamantala lang po sana ito at hindi pang matagalan. Pero nakakalungkot na ito ay naging parang permanente na ating ginagawa ang pagpapadala ng ating mga kababayan. Bago pa po tumama ang pandemya, 6,092 na mga Pilipino ang sumasakay ng eroplano palabas ng bansa kada araw. Araw-araw, 6,092. Ibig sabihin, kada 15 segundo, may isang Pilipino ang nawawalay sa kanyang asawa, sa kanyang anak, sa kanyang mahal sa buhay for greener pasture. We must consider the larger picture as we define and fine-tune these measures at hand. What is the role of the worker deployment in our economic agenda? What place does it occupy in the future of our nation? Shall we remain as mere merchandise in the global labor market? Or should we start harnessing out our best and brightest for our growth. In either case, how can we do so for the best benefit, for our best benefit? Ang pagbabalangkas po ng Department of Overseas Filipino o DOFIL ay hindi po simpleng reorganization lamang na parang lipat bahay ang mga ahensya sa isang bagong bubong. Hindi po ito relabeling exercise na mistulang pagpapalit lamang ng karatula ng pangalan. This legislation is not about workforce reassignments. Creating the DOFIL is about assigning new potent mandates that will empower the department and the constituency it serves. We will use these hearings as a forum to review all laws about the rights of migrant workers. We will incorporate provisions that will give overseas Filipinos more protection from recruitment to repatriation to reintegration. We will enact a new division of labor among DOFIL, DOLE, and the Department of Foreign Affairs to create a synergy to serve the best interests of our overseas Filipinos. Let us have a fruitful, frank, and illumined discussion. Gawin po natin ito para sa isang maganda at mapagpalang araw o gabi para sa mga bagong bayani ng ating bayan. Sila po ang mga Pilipino sa ibayong dagat na patuloy sa pagkayod at pagsusumikap para matamo ang kanilang mga pangarap ng kanilang mga sarili, pamilya, at para sa ating minamahal na bayan. Maraming salamat and may God bless us all. At this juncture, I'll give the floor to our colleagues who wanted to make an opening statement, or our authors. I can see our majority floor leader raising his hand. Majority leader, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a short opening statement as one of the co-authors. Mr. Chair, we filed Senate Bill number 1323 in cognizance of the immense contributions of our OFWs to our economy. Based on the 2019 survey on overseas Filipinos of the Philippine Statistics Authority, during the period, Mr. Chairman, of April to September of the same year, the number of OFWs was estimated at 2.2 million, most of which are working as construction site workers, cleaners, domestic helpers, with Saudi Arabia as the most preferred destination. Furthermore, in 2019, personal remittances of OFWs reached a record high of $33.5 billion, or the current foreign exchange rate of 48 pesos, at an equivalent of 1.6 trillion pesos. This accounts for about 9 to 10% of the country's gross domestic product in 2019. Kung ambag lamang ang pag-uusapan, malinaw ng ambag ng ating mga OFWs or overseas Filipino workers sa ating ekonomiya ay hindi matatawaran. Despite our OFWs' substantial contribution to the economy, they remain to be one of the most underserved sectors of the country. Isipin nyo, they had to endure homesickness from being away from their respective families. Tapos kapag minalas pa, they face physical and psychological abuse and maltreatment in the hands of their employers. You may even recall, the late last year I was very vocal on the case of a maltreated helper by one of our own envoys abroad. Ang kwento nung kasambahay na iyon mula sa South Cotabato ay isa lamang sa napakaraming kwento ng pagmamaltrato ng patuloy na dinadaranas ng ating mga kababayan na nasa ibang bansa. We recognize the role of OFWs on what they play, or the role they play in steering our economy. Batid natin ang napakalaking tulong ng ating mga kababayan na nakikipagsapalaran sa iba't ibang bansa para mabigyan ng magandang bukas ang kani-kanilang mga pamilya. But it saddens me that we are not doing enough to protect them. It's not because our embassies and consulate offices are not doing enough, but there are simply more of our people out there than what our offices can handle. It is about high time that we have a dedicated agency to look after the well-being, safety, and retirement benefits of our hardworking OFWs. This bill aims to provide a more effective and efficient delivery of services to our OFWs by streamlining all functions currently being served out by various government agencies such as the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration and the POEA, among others. With the creation of this department, we are finally giving our OFWs the importance that they so deserve by providing them with an agency whose main task is to protect the rights and promote the safety and welfare of our new heroes. Sa pagsasabatas ng Department of OFW Bill ay pagkilala at pagbibigay importansya sa ambag sa lipunan ng ating mga matatapang na mga OFWs. Mr. Chair, it is my fervent prayer that we can fast-track this, and with you at the helm of this very important piece of legislation, I am most certain that you will see the immediate passage of this bill for the benefit of millions of overseas Filipino workers. Maraming po salamat, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Majority Floor Leader. This juncture also, let me recognize Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, who is physically present and very active in our committee hearings. Are there any other members of the Senate who wanted to make an opening statement, a short manifestation? No one? Okay, we'll give the floor now to we'll allow our resource persons. Let's start with the CABSEC Carlo Nograles, who is with us today. CABSEC, good morning and thanks for being here. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Chair Senator Joel Villanueva. We have a presentation, Chair, if that's all right with the committee.
Please proceed.
Thank you. Chairperson Senator Joel Villanueva, Majority Floor Leader Senator Mig Zubiri, Minority Floor Leader Senator Frank Trilon, to the author of this very important bill, Senator Bongo, other senators here present, Senator Bato de la Rosa, Senator Francis Tolentino, Senator Amy Marcos, Senator Nancy Binay, Senator Sherwin Gatchalian, to my colleagues in the executive branch, Secretary Bebot Bello, Secretary Mamao, Secretary Nick Acosta, at iba pa. Thank you for inviting us to be with you in this virtual public hearing to deliberate and discuss a very important piece of legislation that concerns our overseas Filipinos. Ito po yung pag-establish ng Department of Overseas Filipinos or DOFIL. Last December 15, nabanggit na nga po ni Chair Senator Joel Villanueva, President Rodrigo Duterte certified the necessity of the immediate enactment of Senate Bill number 1949, or the creation of a department solely focused on the needs of overseas Filipinos and their families. Senate Bill number 1949 is the result of a series of consultations and meetings among the executive agencies and represents the unified position of the entire executive branch of government for this measure. It is our response, our collective response to protect overseas Filipinos, especially ang ating mga OFWs, especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. And it is a great opportunity to really look at the bureaucratic dynamics and perhaps even these difficulties in coordinating the protection and the response initiatives natin para sa ating mga mahal na mga bayani ng ating bayan. This is actually a reset for the benefit of all overseas Filipinos. Ito rin po ang batas na magko-codify ng Philippines' commitment to champion and fulfill the 23 objectives of the Global Compact for Safe, Orderly, and Regular Migration. Nabanggit namin sa last hearing na ito baka ang Pilipinas po ang magiging unang bansa na magko-codify ng ating Global Compact or GCM. Tungkol naman po sa rationale, nabanggit na rin ni Senator Joel Villanueva na we have 10.2 million overseas Filipinos around the globe. Together, they drive domestic consumption and account for 9.3% of the gross domestic product and 7.8% of the gross national income last 2019, no? So current setup po natin, there are different agencies that have different mandates relative to overseas Filipinos, including those related to employment and those related to migration. Pero wala po tayong single agency kung saan ina-address po ang lahat ng concerns ng ating mga kababayan overseas Filipinos. And this COVID-19 opened up our eyes na kailangan ma-meet up natin ang challenges na ito. So, this new department seeks to streamline and directly manage all concerns of Filipinos overseas, plus their families, plus their dependents in the Philippines, and make our services to overseas Filipinos more responsive, efficient, and effective. Kanya na nga po, kitang-kita po natin dyan ang mandate and function ng proposed DOFIL. Promote the rights, protect the rights and welfare, to formulate, plan, coordinate, and promote the policies, to have a systematic national development program for managing, monitoring overseas or foreign employment, and protect their right to decent work and fair ethical recruitment practices. Tungkol naman sa POEA, ang POEA at OWA po will form as attached agencies ng DOFIL and will serve to complement DOFIL and the specific technical service deliverables to this new department. They shall still form they shall still retain their mandate as attached agencies, no, of DOFIL. Pagdating naman sa usapin ng right sizing, kita po natin that we have different agencies attached to different departments. But because of the right sizing, the need to right size, lahat po ng mga ito, o UMWA, SWATO, ISO, which is now called the International Social Services Office of the SWD, ang UMWA is ng DFA, ang International Labor Affairs Bureau or ILAB is under DOLE, ang Commission of Filipinos Overseas is under the Office of the President, ang POLO or Philippine Overseas Labor Office is under DOLE, the existing ATN units under DFA, and the National Reintegration Center for OFWs under DOLE will now all form part of DOFIL. Yung budget po nila will all be subsumed under the new department. To reiterate, DOFIL is not creating a totally new agency. Instead, it will be an amalgamation of all key offices dealing with migrant workers protection into a single entity focused on that mandate. It will avoid overlapping functions. It will consolidate the budgetary allocations to a single public entity for a better and more efficient service to OFs and their families. These matters we all elaborated on during the December 7, 2020 Senate hearing. However, allow me to restate and to give emphasis that the creation of DOFIL will not be another big budget ticket item on the National Expenditure Program, but rather a right-sizing solution. Yung mga budgets po ng OUMWA, yung ATN units ng DFA, the Legal Assistance Fund, CFO, ILAB, POLO, NCRO, SWATO, which is now ISSO, all of them will be subsumed under the new department. However, POEA, which has a budget of 507 million, and OWA, which has a budget of 7.39 billion, will be treated separately from DOFIL because they are going to retain their individual existence, no, as attached agencies with their own respective charter. Pagdating sa proposed structure po, alam natin we will have a secretary and 4 undersecretaries and several assistant secretaries, but not all of these offices will be needing new funding source. Kasi meron na pong budget for the CFO secretary, an undersecretary, several bureau directors in other offices, and plantilla items in the absorbed agencies. Pagdating sa bahay ng DOFIL, it can be temporarily housed at the CFO leased building or use the budget for the lease of the CFO building to pay for the office space of the new department. Further, the DOFIL regional offices may be temporarily housed in existing OWA and or DFA o UMWA desks nationwide. The proposed department will adopt a country team approach. No, we will have and the other salient features provide for regional offices, an overseas Filipino malasakit center, an assistance to the national funds. There are also provisions on migrant workers and other overseas Filipino resource center, and of course that Congressional Oversight Committee, which will exercise oversight doon po sa new department. We will adopt a country team approach under Executive Order number 74, series of 1993, which provides that all officers, representatives, and personnel of the Philippine government posted abroad, including but not limited to trade commissioners, Commission on Filipino Overseas, attachés, and trade information, labor, military, and cultural attachés shall on a per-country basis act as one country team with a mission under the leadership of the ambassador, who shall act as the team leader. Like I said a while ago, Mr. Chair, the department shall establish, operate, and maintain a regional office and such other lower level offices as may be deemed necessary by the Secretary in strategic locations in the country, considering the existing regional offices ng POEA at ng OWA. We will also continue to fight the battle against illegal recruitment. Alam na alam po natin yung nangyari noong February 3, 2021, itong taong ito, na may isang taga Lapu-Lapu City arrested by agents ng anti-kidnapping group, Visayas Field Unit at ng Lapu-Lapu City Police na nagpa-promise ng trabaho as caregivers in the United States of America. Inaresto na po siya with 2 counts of illegal recruitment and 7 counts of estafa. In other words, even in this pandemic, illegal recruitment continues to be a problem, and the DOFIL, in partnership with other government agencies and local government units, will cure that by establishing overseas Filipinos malasakit centers in strategic locations of the country to ensure prompt, vital, and relevant services to migrant Filipinos and their families. Ang mga serbisyo na to will include acquisition of clearances and permits, validation of overseas job offers, reintegration services, and the provision of pertinent seminars and workshops for all their stakeholders. Yung assistance to national funds po shall be consolidated with the assistance to the Legal Assistance Fund, and the administration of these funds will be transferred to the Department of Filipinos overseas, no, yung DOFIL, mula sa Department of Foreign Affairs. And as I mentioned a while ago, the proposed Congressional Oversight Committee will be composed of 6 members from the Senate and 6 members from the House of Representatives to continue to monitor and oversee the implementation of the law. To conclude, Mr. Chair, the contributions of OFWs and migrants to the country cannot be overlooked. Large remittances from about 10 million overseas Filipino workers and migrants is one of the many reasons for the Philippines economy to continue being relatively resilient, even despite global economic shocks, even despite this ongoing pandemic. Madalas sinasabi, sila po ang bagong bayani. At ika nga ng isang decision ng Supreme Court through Justice Andres B. Reyes Jr., he wrote that it has been oft repeated that overseas Filipino workers are the Philippines' modern-day heroes. They brave the waters of the seas to provide for their families and to help boost the country's economy. With this proposed measure, Mr. Chair, dear Senators, we can provide the comfortable life that OFWs, migrants, and their families so richly deserve. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Cabsec Carlo Nograles. Let me also put on record and remind the body that it was the Senate who pushed hard for the expansion of the access to assistance to nationals, which we passed a year ago, thanks to our members of the Senate. We'd like to hear, I'm sure everyone would like to hear from the Department of Labor and Employment. We can see Secretary Bello with Admin Hans and Admin Olalia. Secretary Bello, may we hear from you? You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, the Honorable Joel Villanueva, Chairman of the Committee on Labor, the Honorable members of the committees, the Honorable Senator Mig Zubiri, Senator Nancy Binay, of course, my former boss, Senator Franklin Deron, and my kababayan, Senator Amy Marcos. Hindi ko na po alam yung iba, Honorable Chair, pero may I just address them
Yeah,
as the
I will
honorable
try to
members
help
of
you.
the
Senator
Senate
Bato de
Committee
la
on Labor.
Rosa is logged in. Senator Win Gatchalian is with
Oh.
me here, physically present.
Ay, Senator Win Gatchalian, of course, my idol, Senator Bato de la Rosa. Magandang umaga po sa inyong lahat, and may I also address my co-workers in the Executive Department, Secretary Carlo Nograles, magandang umaga po sa atin lahat. May I start, Your Honors, by saying that the Department of Labor fully supports the creation of DOPIL. And we also fully support the creation or the inclusion in the creation of DOPIL, the agency or the bureau, which is called the Bureau of Labor, International Labor Affairs Bureau. We have, however, Your Honors, just a simple request that our International Labor Affairs Bureau under the Department of Labor be maintained, and its function, which we would like to enumerate, to be maintained under the Department of Labor, Your Honors. And these are the functions which provide technical and administrative advice to the Secretary relative to issues and concerns confronting the world of work that may have impact on domestic labor and employment policies of the department, and the latest and relevant international development in the world of work that may be adapted to local context in order to attract investment into the Philippines, which may subsequently result in the creation of decent local employment. Another function, Your Honors, is to help ensure that trade agreements entered into by the country are favorable to the Philippines and will benefit Filipino workers. It also includes the function to monitor the enforcement of the Philippine commitments and obligations with other international organizations like the United Nations, the International Labor Organization, the ASEAN, the European Union, and other related multilateral and regional bodies through coordination with relevant government agencies and other stakeholders. And also, Your Honors, to assist in the implementation of the provisions of international conventions, treaties, and among others, to represent the department in the bilateral, regional, and multilateral fora to promote the interests of Filipino workers. With that, Your Honors, we again reiterate our support for the creation of the Department of Overseas Filipinos. Thank you very much, Your Honors.
Thank you, Secretary Bello. I'm sure a lot of my colleagues would like to ask questions, but can we just give one more statement coming from the Department of Foreign Affairs? We'd like to recognize Yusek Sara Ariola, Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs. Ma'am, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Majority Leader Mig Zubiri, Minority Leader Drilon, Senators Binay, De La Rosa, Marcos, Tolentino, and Go, the Secretary Cabsec Nograles, Secretary Bello, and our other colleagues in government. Good morning. We don't have a presentation, but we'll just read their statement because our presentation might be a reiteration of what Cabsec Nograles already said. The Department of Foreign Affairs that is joining the meeting today thanks the committee for this opportunity to address the issue of the Department of Overseas Filipinos. Mr. Chair, the Department of Foreign Affairs appreciates the rationale for the creation of the new department as the recognition of the Philippine government's solemn duty to protect the rights and to promote the welfare and interest of Filipinos overseas. Let me be clear, the DFA is fully supportive of the creation of Department of Overseas Filipinos. For the past 25 years, mandated the Migrant Workers Act of 1995 to protect our Filipino migrant workers, the DFA has been at the forefront of protecting OFWs and safeguarding their welfare anywhere in the world. The DFA has made great strides in its assistance to nationals operations and delivery of assistance services to distressed overseas Filipinos, such as rescue and repatriation, setting up of shelters for runaways and distressed overseas Filipinos, attending to their illnesses and hospitalization, obtaining the best lawyers to defend their rights, and in several instances, settlement of immigration fines and penalties imposed by the host government on our repatriates. At the multilateral front, the DFA led the Philippines' active engagement in the negotiations for the adoption of the Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration to protect all Filipino migrant workers against all forms of exploitation and abuse and guarantee decent work, consistent with the President's directive that the Filipino is no slave to anyone, anywhere, and everywhere. The DFA is leading the charge in the anti-kafala campaign in the Middle East, where we are currently seeing labor reforms, particularly in Bahrain, Qatar, and most recently in Saudi Arabia and Oman. With the creation of the new department, the DFA welcomes another hand in this difficult and wide-reaching task. Mr. Chair, the new department will be the first in the world to reflect a country's full commitment to champion the 23 objectives of the Global Compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration. Moreover, the creation of the new department is a great opportunity to look at the difficulties of coordinating protection and response initiatives for OFWs. For the Philippines, which has more than 10 million Filipinos living and working overseas, the creation of the new department could not come at a better time. Migration is a reality of our time, and it is our state responsibility to make it safe, orderly, and regular. Thank you very much, and good morning.
Thank you, Yusek. I've been getting a lot of text messages from my dear colleagues, so perhaps we could start the ball rolling unless some of our colleagues would like to make a quick statement. But anyway, we have with us Senator Win Gatchalian, who is physically present. Would you like to start? Yeah, we give the floor to Senator Win Gatchalian.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you very much. Thank you to the executive departments who presented earlier. I just have some basic questions, no, and this has been plaguing this topic when it comes to the creation of a Department of Overseas Filipino Workers. I want to ask Cabsec Nograles, creating a department like this is also signaling, and for many, many years, the goal is to create domestic jobs, padamihin ang trabaho dito, padamihin ang nagnenegosyo. In fact, all the pieces of legislations enacted this past few years were all geared towards expanding our local economy and expanding jobs. Pero ngayon, Cabsec, we're now creating a new department geared towards addressing the issues of our OFWs. Parang nagsisignal rin ho tayo na gusto ho natin dumami pa yung nagtatrabaho sa abroad. At parang sa mga ordinaryong kababayan ho natin, ang sinasabi natin, okay lang umalis ho kayo sa abroad dahil meron tayong isang departamento na hahawak sa mga ganitong issues at problema ho natin. Ako po, supportive po ako sa mga ginagawa ng pamahalaan ho natin para matulungan ang ating mga OFWs. Katulad po ng sinabi ng ating chairman, nung pumunta ho kami sa Hong Kong to talk to our OFWs, makikita ho natin yung iba't ibang kwento ho nila at talagang kailangan ho natin tutukan yung kanilang mga hinaing. But with this proposal, Cabsec Nograles, we're in effect signaling that mag-abroad kayo dahil meron na tayong departamentong hahawak sa mga problema. So, isn't this contradictory to our goal of creating more jobs domestically? And now that we're signaling that we have a whole department handling issues to those who want to leave the country?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May I respond? Thank you for the question, Senator Win. Hindi naman po, no. In fact, the bill also provides for a mandatory review after 10 years. At ang magre-review po nito ay ang Senado at ang Kongreso, no. Kung kinakailangan pa ba at kung i-extend pa ba, then after 10 years may 5-year mandatory review, no. And the mandatory review really is the signal na alam po natin na in the long term, ang gusto po natin talaga ay makabalik at makapagtrabaho ang ating mga Filipinos overseas, maka-establish ng kanilang sariling negosyo at hanap buhay dito po sa bansang Pilipinas. And hopefully nga po, yung lahat ng mga natutunan nila, technologies, know-how, skills that they acquired abroad, ay magagamit din nila eventually dito sa bansang Pilipinas for the benefit of Filipinos and the nation as well. But we also cannot turn a blind eye to the reality na not just for work but for other purposes. There's really immigration. There's migration, regular migration happening not just from Philippines going towards other countries, but all over the world. Migration is really a reality on the ground, no? And in fact, kaya nga po meron global compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration, which we've also already incorporated in this bill, as we can see. And that will really make sure na mapapangalagaan po natin ang kapakanan ng ating mga kababayan abroad. But ultimately also, as part of our global compact for safe, orderly, and regular migration, is yung safety nila to guard against illegal recruitment, but also ultimately to protect them, but also to enable them also to come home to their home country and contribute domestically naman dito sa country of origin. So it's just something that we really need to do in terms of creating this department para lang ma-integrate ang lahat ng approaches. But yes, the policy of government still maintains to be now, while we're protecting our Filipinos overseas, ultimately what we want them to ultimately do is be productive domestically, no? And that's the reason why there's a mandatory review ng creation ng department na ito, Mr. Chair.
So Kamsek, with this after 10 years, there's a mandatory review. Assuming, assuming best case scenario and in a perfect world, we managed to create 10 million jobs domestically and possibly encourage our OFWs to come back. Pwede rin po bang after 10 years ma-dissolve itong departamento na ito?
It will really be up to Congress, Mr. Chair, no? Sa wisdom ng Congress ng panahon na yan, and that oversight committee, at because of the oversight committee naman, I would presume na yearly or regularly, DOFIL will be reporting to the oversight committee ng kanilang mga accomplishments. So within 10 years, we will already have, kumbaga, a list of accomplishments na ginawa ng department. And then upon evaluation of that Congress on the 10th year of the existence ng DOFIL, we will leave it up to the wisdom po ng ating legislators. If they see fit na hindi na kinakailangan pa itong department na ito, and like you said, the good Senator Win Gatchalian said, Mr. Chair, in a perfect world, kung kunyari ay talagang nakakreate tayo ng ganung karaming trabaho, then perhaps the Congress at that time may see it fit to perhaps abolish or siguro slowly put it back or reorganize the department. So depende po sa Kongreso on that particular period in time, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Kamsek. Another basic question, Kamsek, and I was talking to our chairman earlier. Yung mga pang-aabuso, no? The root causes actually come from domestic, no? A lot of them come from illegal recruiters, a lot of them come from syndicates. Marami ho tayong mga sindikato na nag-ooperate at tinatarget po yung ating mga kababayan sa mga kanayunan. How will this bill address illegal recruiters? And for the past probably 5 years, ilan na po ang napakulong na illegal recruiters?
Yung sa arrests of illegal recruiters, I will defer to Secretary Bebot Bello and Dole and other agencies who may wish to respond, no? But doon, Mr. Chair, sa katanungan about how this bill will address, two ways. Number one, with the establishment ng mga malasakit centers na ma-integrate na po, one-stop shop na po lahat ng yan, we hope to be able to ramp up yung services para hindi na mangangailangan ng illegal recruiters, kasi ang tingin kasi ng ating mga kababayan mas mabilis pag dumaan sa illegal recruiters, or mas naloloko sila ng illegal recruiters kasi mas nafa-facilitate ang paperwork. Pero kung mabilis yung pag-aksyon at pagtugon ng ating mga malasakit centers, sapagkat meron na pong one-stop shop at nalalaman ng ating mga kababayan na ito yung yung legal way at mas safe na paraan, then hopefully there will not be a need for our kababayans na dumaan ng illegal recruiters. That is in the carrot approach, no? But sa stick approach naman po, syempre kailangan natin din mag-crack down doon sa mga illegal recruiters, and we will leave that up to the enforcers. With the Department of with DOFIL, with the new department, mas magiging mabilis yung pakikipag-ugnayan ng DOFIL with our enforcers. At mas makaka-request po, kasi secretary level, mas makaka-request din po siya ng tulong mula sa iba't ibang mga secretaries po in the cabinet. So that's really a reality on the ground na kailangan po talaga ng pagtugon at yung mabilis na aksyon mula sa mga cabinet secretaries who are in charge in enforcing the law. So mas maging madali yung kumbaga yung communication side, pagkuha ng information mula sa DOFIL papunta doon sa mga enforcement side naman, kasama yung mga secretaries ng cabinet na in charge po dyan, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Before we hear from POEA, perhaps with the questions raised by Senator Gatchalian, just like to show you something, Secretary Bello, Admin Olalia, no? If you look at the data right now, as pointed out by Senator Gatchalian, it's very important that we look into this, no? Can you make it bigger, please? Just that particular. Ayan ho, pag tinignan niyo po yung endorsed for preliminary investigation, number of cases handled, etc. Pag tinignan niyo po, last 2019 and 2020, dadalawa po yung convictions nito. And so we'd like to find out, and I joined the gentleman from Valenzuela, what would happen if we create DOFIL? Will we be able to address this? And yung hundreds na mga cases po na ito, dalawa yung convictions, tataas po ba ito? May we hear from POEA or Secretary Bello? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. First, let me inform the Honorable Committee that there is an interagency to go against illegal recruiters, Mr. Chair. And second, we have to admit that we have very few convictions, Your Honor. Now, let me explain why. First, Your Honor, many of the illegal recruiters are now foreign-based. Unlike before, Your Honors, that most of our illegal recruiters are locally based. Now, we have more illegal recruiters based abroad, Your Honors. Second, and this is very sad to say, Your Honors, that many of our victims of illegal recruitments are willing victims, Your Honors. Alam na nila na mali yung pinapasukan nila, and yet they gamble with the offers of these illegal recruiters. So much to, Your Honors, that when the case is pending, that's why I don't blame the Department of Justice why mababa ang conviction, because many of these cases, Your Honors, result in dismissal Why, Your Honors? Nag-execute ng affidavit of desistance yung mga complainants. So when the complainants execute that affidavit of desistance, mawawala talaga yung kaso. And this is
Secretary,
what,
I'm sorry, Secretary, just to cut you out. We were talking
Yes.
about it ni Senator Win. Kung alam na po nila na ganun pala yung sitwasyon at alam nyo din po, what is the department doing or what POEA is doing? Kinancel ho ba kagad nila kung alam na ho nilang ganun? Cancel yung order, cancel yung kung ano man yung representation noong illegal recruitment na yon?
tama po, Your Honor, tama po, na kinakancel ng POA yung mga lisensya niyan. Pero even without the license, Your Honors, they operate. Even without license. Because these are illegal recruiters, Your Honor. At pag nasa abroad sila, wala talaga tayong magagawa, Your Honors. Cancelin mo franchise nila. It does not really affect their business, their illegal business, Your Honors. Kaya talagang mahirap abulin mga yan, Your Honors, dahil ito na-modernize na yung kanilang approach. Yung alam nyo naman po na yung mga nire-recruit nila, kung minsan galing sa Mindanao, they fly to Palawan, from Palawan, they go to Malaysia, and then from Malaysia, they go to Hong Kong, and from Hong Kong, they go to the eastern countries. Ganito yung kalakaran na yun sa illegal recruitment. Na-high-tech na po sila, Your Honors. Kaya medyo may kahirapan, in fairness, Your Honor, kaya may kahirapan sa conviction. Yung arrest, marami naman na arrest. Pero eventually, nawawala nga po yan dahil because of the difficulty of prosecuting them because most of the complainants, yung mga victims, ay nag-withdraw. Hindi nila pinapursue yung kanilang complaints. Thank you, Your Honors.
Mr. Chair, marami ho dito sa presentation and sa bill, no? It's about assistance. Tulungan ho natin yung ating mga OFWs. But damage have been done already, Mr. Chair. And without going after these illegal recruiters, whether domestic or abroad, and coming up with preventive measures from this happening, yung assistance ho natin at one point mauubos rin. Pero hindi ho natin, we're not addressing the root cause of the issue, which is illegal recruiters, syndicates, operating and preying on our OFWs. So in discussing this bill, Mr. Chair, this is a good opportune time to address this issue once and for all. And I'm in support of helping our OFWs, but yung mga pictures na nakikita natin, recently pinost po ni Secretary Teddy Boy Locsin, talagang dudugo po yung puso ho natin. Yung mga pictures of abuse na sabi nga ng ating chair, karumal-dumal at parang wala pong kaluluwa yung gumawa. Sana ho, gamitin na natin itong batas na ito na pinag-uusapan natin na mahinto at mapigilan at makulong, no? Itong mga taong gumagawa ho nito. So, ang my message to Secretary Bello and to CAMSEC is to use this opportune time to go after, this illegal recruiters through this law, because this law will address the reaction of government, but we have to also be proactive in chasing and bringing these illegal recruiters to justice more efficiently, because nakakagulat ho yung presentation ng ating chair na iilan lang po ang conviction.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Yusek Ariola, yes?
Mr. Chair, we just like to add to what the Honorable Secretary Bello said. We agree that it's really difficult to prosecute because most of the recruiters are either neighbors or relatives. But we have some gains, Your Honor, like we had a conviction that was cited in the U.S. State Department report when two of our Filipinas who were trafficked from Dubai to Bahrain got a conviction in Bahrain. It convicted 7 Filipinos who made them sex slaves and 1 Bahraini police officer. It was done without them going to Bahrain. It was only through affidavits with the help of course IACAT and our NBI. We also would like to say that most of the they do not have normal work permits. They use visit visas. They enter through Dubai, and like our case in Syria, and from Dubai they are trafficked to a country with an alert level 4 where there's war, like Syria. We realize this is because they want to circumvent the process of the PUAA. And this has been difficult. That's why we've been working very closely also with our Bureau of Immigration. And I understand yesterday they were able to stop the travel of 4 Filipinas who were going to Dubai because it seems that there are trafficking in persons victims. Your Honor, we'd like to assure you that we are doing everything we can to help our kababayans. But I think there's been more apparent now that, especially during the pandemic, that many of our repatriates are holders of visit visa. And we've been working closely with OWA through the kindness, of course, of Administrator Kakdak, who has been considering them as OFWs, even if they're holders of visit visas, because they are undocumented workers. Also, Your Honor, I think it's something that the abuses that were posted by Secretary Locsin, they were not illegally recruited. These are household service workers, but then because of kafala and also because of abusive employers, they were subjected to abuse. So there are 2 things that we are looking at, Your Honor. One is the trafficking in persons, and secondly is the kafala that is existing in the Middle East. That's why we are closely working with our partners and other countries of destination to institute reforms. Thank you, Your Honor.
I think the bottom line here is, will it be addressed by DOFIL, itong mga issues that we are raising? We have heard about DOLE, Secretary Bello. It is very challenging. And we'll give the floor to Senator Bato. Sorry, Idol. Just one quick intervention lang. For example, itong third, ano nga tawag dito, yung third country recruitment, I think it's very challenging. And I share the sentiment of Secretary Bello, mahirap, pero ang hirap din po na isipin na parang helpless na rin po tayo, no? And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, for example, the DOLE and DFA can actually engage in bilateral agreements with countries with large OFW population, you know, so that we can be able to monitor and penalize this foreign recruitment agency. So I hope na-intensify po natin yon. And again, yung bottom line na tinatanong ni Senator Win, and I join him, is paano ito ma-address with the creation of the department. I'll give the floor to Senator Bato. Yes, Senator Bato.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alam nyo, I agree with the statement of our colleague, Senator Win Gatchalian. And I also sympathize with Secretary Bello dahil nga sa pulis parlance yan, ang yung sinasabi nga niya, number 1, beyond our jurisdiction, yung mga salarin. Number 2, ito yung pinakamahirap, itong willing victims. Sa pulis talaga, kahit na airtight case na yung na-build up mo, pagdating sa dulo, biglang nag-360 turn around yung victim, wala ang kaso. Talagang hindi mo makonvict yung mga suspects na yan. But ito nga, yung discussion na ito, Mr. President, nakikita natin na the more na suportahan natin itong bill na ito, itong DOFIL na ito, dahil with the passage of this bill into law, ay wala na magiging willing victims. Paano pa bang magiging willing victims yung FW natin kung alam nila na mayroon ng departamento na nangangalaga sa kanilang welfare, mayroon ng departamento na nag-asikaso sa kanilang employment abroad? Bakit pa sila pupunta doon sa mga illegal recruiter na yan kung nakita nila na may DOFIL naman na mag-asikaso sa atin? Dito na tayo sa legal. So wala na maging willing victims, Mr. President. So the more na gaganda yung takbo ng ating mga OFW na ito. So yun lang, Mr. President. Thank you.
Chair.
Thank you,
Mr. Chair.
Senator Bato. Yes,
Mr. Chair.
Who's talking? Sorry, I can't
Senator
hear.
Binay.
Hi, Senator
Senator
Nancy.
Binay.
Yes, with the indulgence of Senator Win.
Siguro just to add din sa dun sa topic, Mr. Chairman. for me kasi hindi na ito usapin lang ng illegal recruitment eh. Usapin na to ng human trafficking. Yung sinasabi nilang willing victim, siguro i-share ko lang kasi during nung time ng father ko, nung vice president siya, ito yung nag-iisang trabaho niya. In fact, merong isang instance doon na nagbihis madre pa, kaya lang sila nahuli na talagang magtatrabaho sila sa abroad kasi nga nakabihis madre pero nakapulang sapatos. Kaya nahuli sila na talagang ang intention nila was really to work abroad. So, isa tong problema na mas malalim na hindi sa tingin ko kayang sagutin ng DOFIL. But, kumbaga, this is an interdepartment problem. Kasi nga, human trafficking na to. Kaya, katulad na nabanggit ni Yusek Ariola, meron tayong iyakat na tinatawag para nga bigyang solusyon itong problema natin sa human trafficking. Yun lang, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair, just to conclude my my queries and give chance to to our colleagues. Gusto ko lang ho ibigyan diin no, that the objective is to create more jobs. No? The signal here is to create more jobs domestically, to create more entrepreneurs domestically, at dito ho sila magtrabaho, bumalik ho sila para makasama nila yung kanilang pamilya. And this measure is aimed to efficiently deliver services to our kababayans abroad, especially our OFWs, and to prevent crimes and syndicates from flourishing and preying on our OFWs. So itong batas na ito ay gagawin pong mas episyente po ang gobyerno ho natin sa paglalagay po sa isang departamento, lahat po na may kinalaman po sa pagbibigay serbisyo po sa ating mga kababayan. But the signal should be very clear that the goal is for our kababayans to come back, to be with their families, and to contribute to nation building. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator
Mr. Chair.
Gatchalian. We'll proceed with the order. We'll give the floor to Senator Frank Drilon, our minority floor leader. But before that, we'd like to give the opportunity to the author of one of the authors of the bills that we are tackling today, Senator Bongo. Senator Bongo, you're recognized.
Thank you, thank you, Mr. Chair, to my fellow colleagues and our resource persons. Good day, and thank you for allowing me to make a short manifestation. Today, we heed the call of the President to enact a measure that will create a department solely to focus on the ever-growing needs of Filipinos in foreign lands. I thank our good chair, Senator Villanueva, and all of my colleagues who filed similar bills for leading this first step towards the realization of this goal. The President has been steadfast in his position that the country needs a department to properly address the concerns of Filipinos overseas. This is so important to him that he has called for the creation of this department in the last two State of the Nation addresses. Simple lang po ang layunin ng batas na ito. Gusto natin na magkaroon ng isang ahensya ng gobyerno na magsisilbing timon para sa lahat ng concerns ng ating mga kababayan sa ibang bansa. Para naman po ito sa ikakabuti po ng mahigit 10 milyong Pilipino na nakipagsapalaran po sa ibang bansa. Tatagal po natin sa public service, hindi naman po lingid sa ating kaalaman na kapag po ating mga ahensya ay hiwa-hiwalay at may kanya-kanyang mandato, ang nahirapan po ay ang ating mga overseas Pilipino. Kadalasan di nila alam kung saan sila pupunta, pinagpapasahan pa sila, hindi po dapat ganito ang ating gobyerno. Suklihan po natin sila sa kanilang sakripisyo ng maayos at maasahang serbisyo. Tinatawag nga po natin silang modern day heroes natin, mga bagong bayani. Matagal na po tayong nagtatrabaho para sa kapakanan ng ating mga kababayan sa ibang bansa. Panahon na po na maramdaman naman nila ng ating pinagtatrabahuan. Ang executive department po, nagkaroon na sila ng serye ng mga meetings at consultations among the government agencies involved in this measure to coordinate and consolidate their concerns about the bill. Nagkakaisa po ang ating mga government agencies in support of this proposed law, no? Headed by CABSEC Nograles, Secretary Bello, Yusek Ariola, at iba pang mga sila, Yusek Astra. Salamat po sa inyo. Hindi po ito pang dagdag sa ating bureaucracy, rather this is a measure to streamline the bureaucracy. Kaysa naman hiwa-hiwalay ang ating mga ahensya na nagsisilbi sa ating mga overseas Filipinos, hindi po ba mas maganda na nasa isang bubong na lang sila, isang team, isang mandato? Kailangan po mayroon tayong one country team approach para pero ang pinaka-importanteng boses po na kailangan nating pakinggan ay ang boses po ng ating mga overseas Filipinos. Napakarami po ang nagsasabi na bakit natin merong mga nagsasabi na bakit natin kailangang gumawa ng isang departamento. May gumagana naman po ang ating SETA. With all due respect po, iba naman po ang nangyayari sa ground. Nahirapan po ang ating mga overseas na Pilipino. Paano po natin masasabi na gumagana ang ating sistema sa tuwing ako po ay umiikot sa ating mga kababayan, paulit-ulit po ang kanilang mga hinaing. Sana po ay alalahanin natin na sila po ang nangangailangan dito. Pakinggan po natin sila. Intindihin natin kung saan po sila nanggagaling. At the end of the day, para naman po sa kanila itong isinusulong nating batas. Nandito po tayo, hindi para maghain lamang ng mga batas na hindi kailangan. Nandito po tayo para magbigay ng solusyon. Nakikiusap po ako sa ating mga kasamahan na sa pagsiservisyo dito sa Senado. Help us craft this law and help us craft this in a way that would truly work and achieve its intended objectives. Maraming salamat sa mga kasamahan ko rito, sa mga colleagues ko, of course, kay Senator, our Minority Floor Leader, Senator Frank Drilon. Maraming salamat. Napakadami po ng ating mga kababayan sa ibang bansa na naghihintay po ng tulong natin. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, Senator Bongo. At this juncture, we give the floor to... Yes?
Yusek Astra.
I'm sorry, we have an order here. We'll give the floor to our Minority Floor Leader. Has been waiting for quite a long time. Our Minority Floor Leader, Senator Frank Drilon, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have been listening intently to all the presentations for the past 1 hour, and I can appreciate the various views put forward by our different government agencies. Indeed, being part of the cabinet, with the president having certified this measure, it's incumbent upon them to defend the creation of this department for overseas Filipino workers. That's natural. I don't blame them, although they had different positions in the past on precisely the same issue. But having said that, Mr. President, I think I can claim a little experience on this point. I started my government career as Secretary of Labor, and I have had first-hand experience on these problems, and was able to address many of these problems as a Secretary of Labor then. Of course, I'm a little bit dated. I was there about 30 years ago, but hearing what the proposed, what the problems are, it's nothing that is new to me. In various forums, I have confronted this. Having said that, Mr. President, may I be given time to review carefully the propositions and the position papers of the various cabinet members. I would like to have a copy of the presentations. I will review the transcript, but particularly the presentation of Secretary Nograles, the presentation of the DFA, the presentation of the Department of Labor and Employment. Just give me a little time to review all of this before I raise questions so that it can be a substantial discussion on the issue at hand. So with that, Mr. President, may I defer my questions to some future hearing set by this committee. Thank you very much, Mr. President, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, distinguished Minority Floor Leader, and we'll put this on record that you are not at all aging. You're always updated, distinguished Minority Floor Leader. Every single measure that is being passed in this August chamber, talagang fully scrutinized by our Minority Leader, and he makes sure that every single measure that will be passed will be quality measure, quality laws of this country. So again, thank you, distinguished Minority Floor Leader, and we take note of your request, and we direct the Secretariat to make sure that not only the Minority Floor Leader but all the members of the Senate be given a copy of the positions of the different agencies of the government, including the presentations made by our Cabinet Secretary and DFA and other agencies. Next in line is our distinguished colleague from Davao, Senator Bato de la Rosa, if he's online.
Parang okay na po yan, Chairman, yung binanggit niya kanina. I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Senator Mig Subiri, of course, our Majority Leader, will give the floor to you if you
It's okay,
wish
Mr.
to.
Chairman. I think some resource persons want to be recognized. We have, I think,
Yes.
the OFW OPA Secretary, Office of the President, and
if
also
that's the case, we
Ma'am
can recognize our representative from CFO and the Overseas Filipino Workers and the Muslim Concerns. We have Secretary Abdullah Mamao who's with us. Yes, sir. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I would like to go back on the issue pointed out by the Honorable Senator Gatchalian. And it is about the effective prosecution of illegal recruiters. The problems that we are facing are not only illegal recruitment, but also human trafficking. And I had seen this in my travels to the Middle East, especially in Iraq and in Kuwait and in Saudi Arabia, and for that matter in some parts of the Middle East. One thing that I would like to point out, Mr. Chairman, is that in the matter of prosecution, as pointed out by Secretary Bilyo, there is that problem of lack of interest on the part of the victims. I would like to say that this is one thing that can be the subject of legislation, where the matter of prosecuting crimes on illegal recruitment and human trafficking can be considered as public crimes. In other words, even if there is withdrawal of the criminal complaints, the prosecution for that matter can proceed with the prosecution of these criminal cases. And from the data that was just presented, it seems that we have sort of a very, very lax prosecution of these criminal cases. So the leadership on this new department will really be a very important component on the creation of this department that will serve as a very effective organization on international labor migration. So I would like to suggest, Mr. Chairman, that the law on the prosecution of illegal recruiters should be considered as public crime. And one thing also, in relevant to the prosecution of drug offenders, maybe one consideration that could be made is to consider the crime of illegal recruitment as non-bailable offenses, so that in the event a respondent is accused and there is an information filed, that respondent will remain in jail until the case is prosecuted successfully by our prosecution department. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary Mamao. From the Commission on Filipinos Overseas, I was hearing kanina si Yusek Astravel.
Hello,
Yusek Astravel.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
you have the floor.
Yes,
Please.
can you hear me? Yes. I would just like to make an intervention regarding the human trafficking and illegal recruitment. It is good to note, maybe the legislators would appreciate it very much also if we report that the Philippine government has been ranked as tier 1 against human trafficking for consecutive years already. So since the start of the administration of President Duterte, that was in 2016, we have received the tier 1 ranking. And we are the only country in Asia actually who got that ranking. So the efforts of this government has been very notable to fight against human trafficking, and the coordination of the different agencies has been enhanced. And in fact, the creation of the DOFIL would also address the concern of this, because even in the IACAT Council meetings, one representative from DOLE, and another representative from ILAB, another representative from CFO, and so on and so forth. But when the DOFIL is going to be created, there's only just one voice that's going to be consolidated in the IACAT Advocom, and the coordination for these efforts will be done by one of the different agencies, migration agencies, will in fact be consolidated, and there will only be one voice and one command that is going to be given by the secretary. So we believe in the CFO that as the IACAT Advocom chair, we believe that with this creation, it will address a lot of the issues. And so we would like to recognize all of course, the marching orders of the president to really fight against human trafficking and illegal recruiters. And in fact, there are many cases. We could ask the DOJ to give also to this committee the report on the convictions, the recent convictions, the recent cases that the IACAT has done to fight against illegal recruitment and human trafficking. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Yusek Astravel, no? And again, we are with the executives when you talk about the importance of having a department that would solely focus, laser focus, and concentrate in the affairs of our overseas Filipinos. But no less than the secretary himself made mention from the Department of Labor and Employment that this is very challenging, no? And Senator Win and I are talking about how DOFIL will be able to help address the problem of illegal recruitment, the problem of third country recruitment, the increase of third country recruitment, especially after this pandemic, nag-shoot up po ito, no? And as mentioned earlier, I think with the establishment of a Department of Filipino Overseas, perhaps there will be a focus on addressing the engagement of bilateral agreements with countries with large OFW population, again to monitor and penalize yung mga foreign recruitment agencies. We'll give the floor to Senator Amy Marcos. Senator Amy Marcos, you're recognized. Senator Amy Marcos. Senator Amy, I think she's on the other hearing.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, I think she's on the other hearing, Mr.
Yeah.
Chair.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator Nancy Binay.
Hindi, si Yusek Edilion kasi was raising her hand.
Yes, I saw her kanina, but she left. I couldn't see her right now. Yusek Edilon.
Yes, I'm here.
Yes, you're there. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't see everyone in this small screen.
Okay.
Yusek Edilon, you're recognized, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to the honorable members of this committee. We just would like to weigh in on the issue raised earlier by Senator Win, and this is really with respect to that policy of labor exporting ba tayo? Hindi. Okay. So we always maintain that it's not a policy to export labor, but we see actually this department as an opportunity to bring home that message, and we think that what can be done is to make explicit the mandate of reintegration as part of the mandate of the department of this department. So in particular, we are actually proposing that in Section 4, we include as part of the mandate that of formulating, responsible for the formulation, planning, and coordination of reintegration and social service programs for returning OFs. In fact, we're even proposing that for the Office of the Undersecretary for Foreign Employment, that we include there and reintegration. So what the situation we are hoping to happen is that for every overseas Filipino living, remember we actually provide a pre-departure orientation where we actually include financial literacy courses as part of that, and we should actually include financial planning and require all these overseas Filipinos to come up with a financial plan. So how much are they hoping to raise with this overseas employment, and when do they want to come back, so that they can plan accordingly, and we have the department that will also help them with respect to investment placement. We already have an amendment to the corporation code which actually will allow them to invest in corporations here in the Philippines, will even allow them to attend meetings in virtually. So these are things that can be handled also by the department, again, so that the signal is that while we recognize that this is a reality, we still think that we still know and recognize that the long-term plan of Filipinos is still to be with their family. So that's all, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Yusek. No, just one question, but before I do that, let me reiterate my position on this, and we agreed that this should not be the case, and this is not a state policy, and would like to emphasize the importance, really the importance of creating jobs here in the Philippines, that we don't need to see another kababayan of ours. Imagine yung binanggit natin kanina, 6,000 plus before the pandemic, 6,000 plus every single day would leave the country, would be separated from their families, from their loved ones, etc. So importante po talaga yung pag-create ng paglikha ng trabaho dito sa ating bansa. At yung binabanggit niyo po, Yusek Adilon, yung reintegration. No? I just remember sa China yung policy nila, they utilize their overseas Chinese professionals by introducing policies to provide formal incentives to returning professionals to conduct research and practice their profession through facilitating scholarships, grants, funding, etc. Ito yung gusto natin mangyari once we put this new department of Filipinos overseas. But let me ask you one question, Yusek. When talk about right sizing, fiscal space, I remember during the budget hearing, ang NEDA had strong reservations on establishing a new department, no? When it comes to right sizing principles, tsaka itong fiscal space. Does our government have enough fiscal space if the proposed department will be passed this year? Because that's our goal. And number two, can you give us estimated total budget requirement for the initial implementation, perhaps maintenance of this proposed department? And siguro, how much also will be saved considering that upon the presentation of CABSEC Nograles, yung mga agencies pagsasama-samahin, so yung mga nag-overlap na mga positions, magiging synchronized po yan, makakasave po tayo. Can you give us just a ballpark figure, Yusek Adilon? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, it was the office of CABSEC who consolidated all the inputs with respect to this. Yes, this was actually the issue, the concern raised by the economic managers. But we now recognize that this could actually be the way to really come up with a more efficient delivery of services. So we think that having so many departments in charge is may not be the optimal way of delivering the service, and so we don't have the ballpark figure, but we are looking at all those numbers that were mentioned by CABSEC, that if it's really a matter of putting together all these previous bureaus or departments in charge, and then the budget, parking it in the department, then it could be a way of rationalizing it. But actually, I would defer to the DBM to come up with the more exact numbers with respect to how much does it really take to start a department. In fact, one of our comments as well is to provide for a longer transition for this department. I think the bill states that it's just for 6 months. We are actually proposing 2 years because we are in a pandemic. There are so many problems that could come up that requires very immediate response, and if you have a transition being done, which is massive transition at that, then it could hamper the response. So but we think that if we allow for a longer transition, then that would take care of the issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Si Cabsec Nograles would like to, if you want to say something about the questions raised, if you have some figures. I think we also have from DBM si Director Meng Hamal, who's also with us. I don't know if she could help us out with the questions raised, but unless Cabsec Nograles would like to say something.
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. Actually, dun sa slide na present po namin, actually what we wanted to show lang is in the first year of its creation, hindi naman po tayo magdadagdag ng budget kasi yung budget na naka-lodge na sa iba't ibang mga offices, mga iba't ibang opisina,
Yun yung
ipa-subsume na o ipapasok kapag inamalgamate natin. So wala nang dagdag na budget ang kinakailangan. We will only see what sort of budget implications it will have siguro on the next budget cycle na po. And I think that's the reason why the 6 months is nandyan, because wala naman tayong babaguhin sa budget, nandyan na po yung budget. So if, for instance, Congress is able to pass it this month, March, mapirmahan na ni Pangulo, then you just have 6 months towards the end of 2021 to be able to just subsume what is in the OMWA, yung existing ATN units, yung sa Legal Assistance Fund, sa CFO, sa ILAB, sa POLO, sa NCRO, at sa ISSO. Lahat pa naman yan ay gagamitin dun sa panibagong department at wala naman tayong i-create na bagong undersecretary siguro muna kasi meron ng isang USEC na i-absorb na position. And then siguro yung next budget cycle ipapasok na lang po natin. And that's the reason why we want it sana pass na, Mr. Chair, para we can already, when Congress begins to deliberate on the 2022 budget, then doon na po natin makikita, makikita both the Senate and the House kung meron pa bang karagdagang budget ang kinakailangan for 2022. But very minimal lang siguro, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you.
Mr.
And
Chair.
perhaps next hearing, if we could hear something from DBM, kasi kung isi-synchronize po yung ilang mga positions, definitely we will be able to save some monetary funding for the department. And another thing that I'd like to raise is that DBM during the budget hearings, I remember they were kind of having second thoughts about creating a department last year because of the fact in the light of the Mandanas decision by fiscal year 2022 that would impact the overall personal services level. of our public sector. No? So I hope na ano po natin. I think Senator Amy Marcos, Senator Mig Subiri, our majority leader,
Yeah.
would like to add something. Yes.
Yeah, just to add, because CAPSEC is online, Secretary Bello is online, my dear colleagues in the executive department are online, and they're listening. What is important is we don't create false hopes for our kababayans na OFWs. We have to create a department that is actually that can actually help them out. Diba? Kasi mahirap naman sabihin natin sa kanila, gagawa tayo ng Department of OFWs, pero huwag kayong mag-alala, sila na bahala sa lahat ng problema ninyo. So we have to make sure that we're not providing false hopes with them and that there is a clear-cut structure in place on how their grievances can be heard and how their grievances can be solved. Because I'll give you an example. We created recently the Department of Housing. But my question always is, did we increase the number of houses in our country, na low-cost houses, because of this new department? So, ang ayaw ko mangyari bilang author nitong Department of Filipino Overseas Workers ay meron tayong isang departamento na wala namang nagagawa. Bumabalik pa rin sila sa DOLE, bumabalik pa rin sila sa ambassadors para sa kanilang mga tulong at pangangailangan. So, I need the support of we need the support of the executive how to really make this work kasi kayo ang implementors eh. Kami, we can write the best law. But if it is not implemented properly, naka-ere, no? They're still hanging. All our OFWs will still be hanging. And then eventually, sasabihin nila, walang hiya. Itong department, wala namang ginagawa para sa amin ito. Ayaw natin yan. We have a chance now from the very beginning to make a good law, to make sure that it is responsive of the needs of the OFWs bilang isang author. And that is the input that we need from the executive department on how we can make it work. We see already the bottlenecks, we see the problems of financing, we see the problems of personnel, even in the embassies abroad. So, wag po natin itong gawing shell cabinet portfolio. It has to be a working cabinet portfolio. So yun po ang kailangan namin because I'm listening intently to the discussions with all due respect to our different government agencies. But we need specifics on how it will make it better. Not a mere absorption of the departments that are now existing is not enough to create a powerful, efficient, effective department as we had seen in the creation of the Department of Housing. I do not see a tremendous amount of new houses in the countryside. So, sana, yung Marawi kami ni Aimee, di ba, at ni Sen Bato, hirap na hirap kami sa Marawi at yung mga bahay dun kulang pa. So, let's work together on how you can give inputs that can actually directly improve the versions that we have already filed. Para to sa ating mga kababayan ng OFWs, let's not give them a white elephant, let's give them a very efficient and effective department. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I will continue listening intently for better, for other increased additions to our bill to make it work.
Thank you very much, our distinguished majority floor leader who worked so hard for this committee hearing to continue and being very supportive of these measures at hand. I am a living testimony. I've seen firsthand how our majority leader takes care of our OFWs, no? And as mentioned earlier, when we went to Hong Kong, he made a lot of our kababayans happy during that time. And again, thank you, Majority Floor Leader. We give the floor to Senator Amy Marcos. Yes, she's here. Okay, Senator Amy, you have the floor.
Sorry, medyo nagja-jogging kami between DA and Senator Dick. So I logged in earlier and then went on to other places. So I'm back. As our Major said, let's be careful that we don't unduly raise expectations. It's important that we home into the actual target. As we know, there are three categories of Filipinos abroad. There are those who are permanent, there are those who are temporary, and the irregular migrants. Yung temporary, ang commonly na tinatawag nating OFW. Talaga bang i-target natin lahat yan or liliwanagan natin? Kasi it's very, very important that we're very clear so that hindi natin sakupin lahat. And as Majo said, masamang experience natin pag hindi rin naman napopondohan at hindi rin nabibigyan ng maayos na direksyon yung department, sayang lang, title lang yung department at saka sahod lang ng 5 USEC ang binabayaran. Wala lang. The other thing that I really needed to know was, is there a real resumption of placement abroad? Full-blown na ba yan? Na-discuss ba kanina? Kasi litong-lito po yung mga dito sa norte, yung mga na-repatriate, kung makakabalik ba yung mga NARS, hindi ba pwede yan? Ano na ba talaga yung sitwasyon? Kasi ang pagkaalam nila, hindi pa sila pwedeng i-repatriate. So medyo nagkakagulo lang. I just needed an update. You don't need to answer right now, but it's important given the discussion about Bayanihan 1 and 2, the disbursements for the OFW items in both those laws need to be explained and finalized.
Yes, do we have,
Ay, sino yan?
May taga-DBM chairman who's raising her hand.
yes,
Taga-DBM.
can we hear from you?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Mr. Chair, I would just like to add about what Kamsek Nograles mentioned about the budget. We actually have this cost of estimated cost for 2021 level, the amount of 1,109,357 and 485, which refers to the estimated minimum funding requirements for the newly created department for a newly created department level entity. So this would cover the cost for the basic operationalization of a department, but this excludes those for the implementation of the specific programs, activities, or projects of a department to deliver its organizational outcomes and outputs consistent with its mandate. We have some assumptions that could be considered in coming up with this estimated cost. Should I give the breakdown?
Yes,
sorry,
Senator
Mr.
Amy?
Yes, Mr. Chair, with all due respect, yung tinatanong ko, yung status sana ng B1, B2, at kung talagang nag-resume na yung placement abroad, yung deployment, 100% na ba siya?
Yes, I think si Senator Amy is asking DOLE or DFA.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, Secretary Bello, you're recognized.
thank you, Mr. Chair. Would like to address the concern of my kababayan, Senator Amy. For the information of the committee, Your Honors, would like to inform you that the repatriation of our overseas continues every day. In fact, Your Honors, the repatriation, well, it was substantially reduced, but it's still talking of about 1,000 to 2,000 repatriates every day, Your Honor. Now, as to the deployment, Your Honors, we have no deployment suspension right now, but we have a deployment cap with respect to our nurses and other healthcare workers. The cap, Your Honor, is 5,000 per year. But this cap, Your Honors, does not cover the balik manggagawa, Your Honors.
I see.
And yes, and for the information of the Honorable Committee, we are now negotiating with the United Kingdom because the United Kingdom government has requested that they be exempted from the deployment cap of 5,000 a year. And it is under negotiation, Your Honor. And another country, which is Germany, is also requesting for a deployment of 50,000 medical workers, Your Honor. And these are all subject to discussions, Your Honor. So that's the present situation of our deployment, Your Honors.
Thank you so much. The reason I asked, Mr. Chair, is precisely as Secretary Bello said, despite the urgent pleas of the European Union, as well as California and other states of the United States, the the nurses and other health workers who wish to go overseas have not been allowed overseas. Pero yung pala, may cap pala tayo and under negotiation. Thank you for that information, and if we can be updated as soon as possible. And then yun nga, yung B1 at B2, kumusta na? Natanggap na ba ng ating DOLE at iba't iba pang lugar, iba't iba pang ahensya, yung naibigay sa Bayanihan 1 and 2 mula sa DBM?
Your Honor, may I request our POA administrator to address that concern, Your Honor.
Yes, Admin Olalia, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, honorable members. Senator Marcos, yun pong H2A at H2B po, ito po yung ating seasonal workers and non-seasonal skilled workers po natin.
Aling item yan sa Bayanihan 1 or 2?
Bayanihan 1.
Oo, to clarify lang, kasi yung naintindihan lang po namin yung Bayanihan 1 and 2 eh. Baka yung detailed project listing na yan.
These are the seasonal workers, ma'am, and according to the US government, tinanggal na po nila yung restriction sa atin, no? So yung H2B, I think they are allowing now.
Are you referring to an American visa? Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Hindi. Ang tinatanong ko, natanggap na ba ninyo ng kabuuhan yung perang galing sa DBM, sa Bayanihan 1 at saka sa Bayanihan 2?
Your Honor, we already received all the budgetary allocation under Bayanihan 1 and Bayanihan 2, Your Honor. And thank you very much for that, Your Honor.
Yes, naniniguro lang. So, have you been able to disburse the entire amount? Kasi natuklasan namin sa ibang department, nasa 25% or even less yung nagastos despite the fact that it's supposed to be an emergency fund.
Your Honor, yung Bayanihan 1 fully paid out na, Your Honors.
Oo, na-report na ninyo yung Bayanihan 1. At saka nagdagdag pa nga kayo, ewan ko paano ninyo nagawa eh. Yung Bayanihan 2,
yung Bayanihan 2, Your Honors, malapit nang maubos na rin. Yun na lang pong appropriation for our OFWs under the ACAP program. Meron na lang po siguro naiiwan na almost 400 million pa, Your Honors, to cover about 40,000 OFWs.
Sigurado naman kulang yung ACAP.
Yung abot kamay sa pagtulong, Your Honors, that is our program for our OFWs. We are giving them a cash assistance of $200 on site and it's a peso equivalent of 10,000 if they be repatriated, Your Honors.
Yes, that's right, Secretary. Kaya sigurado ako madali lang gastusin yan, kulang pa. So if you could just submit the breakdown for Bayanihan 2 so that we have it on record. And then lastly, Mr. Chair, I'm just being difficult, but out of sheer desperation over the repatriated OFWs, Cabsec Nograles is here. There is the possibility, of course, of simply expanding the PEO. In the meantime, with an executive order, pwede ba yun? Na i-expand yung authority, bigyan na muna ng budget kung hindi pa natin kaya. Alam niyo, ako yung dakilang Ilocano dito, kasama ni Secretary Bello, and if you will see, 2019 pa, wala pang COVID, ang sinasuggest ko, wag munang department, kundi authority lang. Kasi alam ko nga kung gaano kalaki yung gastos, tulad ng sinabi ni DBM Meng Hamal, napakamahal talaga. I was actually thinking, worst case na lang, hindi ba pwedeng i-executive order na muna yung POEA at talagang hirap na talaga ang ating mga OFW, expand authority perhaps, and integrate DFA and DSWD functions that are relevant. Wala lang, devil's advocate lang para mapabilis lang ang ating problema.
Yes, I think it's an important issue raised by Senator Amy, and I'd like to join her in ensuring that we'll get an answer, no? Bakit importante na department instead of for example, a bureau or a authority focusing on OFWs? Can we have an answer on that? Siguro kay Kabsec o kung kanino man po, bakit kailangan ang department, not an authority? And another thing that I'd like to raise, as mentioned by Senator Amy, in Sri Lanka, ganun po yung ginawa nila sa Sri Lanka. Yung kanilang Ministry of Foreign Employment acts as a policy-making body on all matters relating to foreign employment. So ang ginawa nila, parang yung POEA natin, yun ang ginawa nilang another unit, no? Parang department, yung POEA natin, yun ang ginawa nila. So I hope na meron tayong mga pag-aaral nito, and we know for a fact that this is the best way to go to create a Department of Overseas Filipinos. Can we hear from Kabsec?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the question, Senator Amy. No, I guess the answer would be structurally, it is something that we hope to accomplish in terms of right sizing and concentrating all efforts. No, so structurally, kung lahat under one umbrella, instead of it being some sort of interagency, magkaroon na rin ng permanence. Yung structure na yan, na everything's under one umbrella at isa lang po yung timon, gaya ng sinabi ng author, si Senator Bongo. And then by rank, I guess mas I mean, di hamak naman po, let's be realistic, mas nakikerry po ng powers ang ini-impose ng isang cabinet secretary. So with a cabinet secretary and a secretary rank, a member of the cabinet, a full-fledged member of the cabinet na makaka-report kay Pangulo, makakakuha agad ng presidential directives from the president at makaka-impose din po agad, no? Because remember, pag cabinet secretary po ang level, syempre pagdating sa international, sa other countries, cabinet secretary ang nagsasalita, no? So in terms of prosecuting, going against traffickers, being a member of the Interagency Council against trafficking, illegal recruitment and everything, pakikipag-usap sa mga counterparts natin sa ibang bansa, person na cabinet rank holds much sway in discussions like that kasi alter ego na nga ng Pangulo. So maraming advantages po. And then thirdly, of course, we want to do it very, very fast, as said by Senator Amy. But if, I guess, kung the choice is between an authority and department, mas pipiliin po ng executive branch at ni Pangulo na rin mismo. Kaya nga po nag-issue na siya ng certification of urgency so that the Senate would take into recognition that si Pangulo na rin ang nakikiusap na department na. Kasi same effort na lang din po kung we do an authority or a department. The preference, with all due respect, Senator Amy, Mr. Chair, is department level na po.
Well, first, thank you, Senator Amy. Just one
Yeah,
minute.
no problem.
If you may, thank you. Secretary Nograles, please don't get us wrong. We are with you. A lot of senators are supporting this measure. I, for one, is very passionate about this. In fact, we believe that there's really a need for a one agency government, whether it's an authority or department, that would really focus on the affairs of our beloved Filipinos overseas, especially our our OFWs, no? And syempre, pagdating, you know very well more than any member of the cabinet how it is in the Senate, how it works in the Congress. After the committee hearings, we will be on the floor, we will be debating on it, we'll be scrutinizing the measure, etc. I'll be the one defending the measure. And it's important that we talk about this, no? As I mentioned earlier, yung Sri Lankan model, yung parang POEA nila, yun yung ginawa nilang Ministry of Foreign Employment. Now, when you talk about, as I was listening attentively to your statement, yung importance of mainstreaming our OFW services. Yung pong ginawa ng India in 2004, they established a separate ministry for overseas employment. No? Ang ginawa nila, yung Ministry of External Affairs, which is similar to our Department of Foreign Affairs, yun po, doon nila nilagay yun. No? So DFA, their DFA in India handles this OFW services. So again, ang point lang natin is we look into all these models and we say this is really what is best for our situation, for yung setup, present setup natin with millions and millions of our overseas Filipinos abroad.
Yes,
Senator Amy,
Mr.
please
Chair.
proceed.
yes,
Mr.
just to
Chair, with the permission of Sen. Aimee, related.
Yes,
Mr. Chair.
Senator Binay, with the indulgence of Senator Amy. Senator Binay, you're recognized.
Okay lang, Sen. Aimee?
yeah, sure.
Okay. Yun lang, Mr. Chairman, kasi di ba parang nasabi ni Cabsec Carlo, with the creation of DOFIL, parang may secretary na nakatutok. But we do have a secretary. I mean, Secretary Delio is there, who also has the ear of the president. So, ano yung magiging diferensya with the creation of DOFIL?
Mr. Chair, may I respond?
Yes, please, Cabsec, thank you.
Maganda yung tanong ni Senator Nancy, no? So basically, parang if you look at DOLE and the portfolio of the Department of Labor and Employment, napakalawak. So siguro ang ma-imagine or ma-envision po natin, pagdating sa OFWs or even overseas Filipinos, not just OFWs, but for the Department of Overseas Filipinos ang mag-handle ng overseas Filipinos concerns, no? Whereas si Secretary Bello at the Department of Labor and Employment can really now focus on job generation, employment domestically. So parang that way, we, especially with this COVID-19 pandemic na maraming nawalan ng trabaho, if we have the two departments really working on employment, no, protecting our Filipinos overseas, how to get them back working there and even reintegrating them back domestically, and then sa DOLE naman protecting our domestic Filipino workers naman domestically, no, ang lahat ng mga kababayan natin mga Pilipino na nagtatrabaho dito. So parang ganun, it's magkaroon ng we hope to be able to accomplish even more protection for workers either overseas or domestically. And then of course generate more jobs. At the end of the day, ito na yung next laban natin after COVID, job generation, employment, and all of these things na kailangan natin to get people back sa kanilang pagtatrabaho.
Yeah, pero Cabsec Carlo, pero technically, pag sinabi mo overseas, yan naman ang trabaho ng Secretary of Foreign Affairs, di ba? In fact, mas siya yung may personality abroad. And so, ang ibig sabihin ba nito, yung magiging secretary ng DOFIL will already do some jobs of the Secretary of Foreign Affairs?
Actually, Mr. Chair, kaya nga nakalagay dun sa ating bill, sa bill na sinusuportahan ng executive, na nandiyan yung one country approach pa rin. No, so basically what we really want to accomplish, Mr. Chair, is meron talagang mga nakatutok dito sa ating OFWs at overseas Filipinos. But because again, no, the DFA, malawak din yung hinahawakan ng DFA, and now we have the support of DFA, no. Lahat ng nandito ngayon ng mga departments natin are well aware of how the assignments would look like. Na parang while we're working together as one country, at least may mga nakatutok na mga cabinet secretaries according to the mandate that will be provided by Congress ultimately. So yun po yung gusto natin ma-accomplish, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Amy, you may continue. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Cabsec Nograles has given us 3 compelling reasons that a department is required. To my mind, these are not that compelling. After all, unang-una, yung structurally right-sizing, surely the opposite would occur. Given that, as Majority Leader Subiri has said, sawang-sawa na tayo sa ating mga shell departments na wala naman nangyayari kasi wala naman budget, wala naman liderato, ay para pa Ako'y Ilocana. We don't have 1 billion pesos in the time of COVID burning a hole in our pockets. It's simply not the case. I filed the authority long before because the expertise, in fact, lies with POEA. You cannot, even if you endow this new department with all kinds of money, you cannot overnight generate the kind of skill sets required for the psychosocial repatriation of our OFW. You cannot mandate all these labor relations and other requisites that we would need in order that our migrant labor populations would be ready for the new normal and be ready for the new regional adjustments. Secondly, yung isang timon, hindi naman natutulog sa pansitan si Secretary Bello at ganon din ang tapang-tapang ni Secretary Locsin. Sa palagay ko, maliban pa dyan, si Presidente nakailang beses na rin na ginagawang cabinet rank yung hindi namang cabinet, katulad ng NEDA. Ang tagal na ng NEDA na authority lamang. Pero secretary po ang tawag natin, higit sa lahat ng kausap niyan, World Bank, IMF, FATF, ang tataray at nang bobongga ng mga kausap. Hindi naman totoong sekretary kung tutuusin, wala naman department yan. Ikatlo, ang sabi po ninyo, quickly. Ang nangyayari, hindi po quickly. I'm fully aware that this was part of the platform and the promises of President Duterte when he ran in 2016. But 2016 to 2021 has been a very, very long time. So I am really very keen that we carry on already. Kung EO lang yan, sige na lang. Pero importante talaga na magkaroon tayo ng isang namamahala sa ating mga repatriated OFWs. You made the distinction between local and international labor. There is no such distinction. Thousands, hundreds of thousands have been repatriated and have now been forced to look for jobs in the local workplace. Thank you po.
Thank you very much, Senator Amy, and we hope to get clearer picture in the coming hearings. Why is it really important? No, we cannot take this path of just putting or creating an authority instead of a department, but also would like to place on record. As I mentioned earlier, yung Sri Lankan model, tsaka yung Indian model, yung sa Nepal naman ho, sa Nepal, yung Nepal's Ministry of Labor, Employment and Social Security, or MOLES, this is similar to our Department of Labor and Employment. Sila naman po yung nag-handle ng overseas workers po nila. So perhaps in the next hearings, we'll talk about more of these different models where we can perhaps learn from, and at the same time ensure that what we are tackling here and yung direction po natin, this is the best way to go in serving our overseas Filipinos. Next on the list is Senator Francis Tolentino. Senator Tolentino, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning to our colleagues. Good morning to our resource persons. Kwento ko lang siguro yung my previous experience during my previous life as MMDA chairman. My first week in office, I visited Taft Avenue. And Taft Avenue was teeming with a lot of enforcers. There was an outpost of the Philippine National Police, Pasay Police. There was a station for the Highway Patrol. There was an outpost for MMDA. And I think I saw another outpost for Pasay traffic enforcer. So sabi ko, anong ginagawa nyo rito? We're manning the traffic. So seeing that, I saw the chaotic situation. Dinimolish ko lahat yung mga outposts. A lot of them performing the same functions. But to set the record straight, I'm in favor of this measure. I would just like to add more confusion to the chaotic situation. I'd like to ask the representative, the highest ranking representative coming from the DFA, and probably Secretary Nograles can butt in if he may so desire. Is there a DFA representative here?
Yes,
Secretary
we have
Locsin.
Yusek Ariola and other members of the department. You may proceed, Senator
Yes,
Tolentino.
Yusek Ariola, are you there?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning.
Yes, this will crisscross previous questions made by Senators Binay and I think Senator Marcos or the previous questions coming from my colleagues. Apparently, and to the credit of Secretary Bello and the draftsman of this bill, I was once a co-author of the previous measure. DOLE gave a lot of its functions to the proposed new department, the DOFIL. Apparently, the downsizing, right sizing issue would be resolved has been resolved or is still to be shown as resolved by in our next hearings. But I would like to see a shedding of powers, so to speak, not sharing, not coordination, as my previous Taft Avenue experience would show, but a delegation of power coming from the Department of Foreign Affairs to the this new department that we are trying to craft. I see a probable mess insofar as overseas posting, and I would pose again my analog of Taft Avenue EDSA in a foreign land. The DFA is supposed to be in charge of our foreign affairs. Under the Constitution, under tradition, it's the representative of the president, exercising full legate, full plenipotentiary powers, and full powers to represent the country. My question here is this, and Secretary Nograles can butt in. Under the present bill, it would appear that the role of the DFA is just to coordinate, and that the role of the DOFIL would likewise be coordinative. You call it one country approach, which for me is very esoteric. What would be nice is to give this new department a specialized role. We are creating a department because we would want to have professional management. We would want to have a hierarchical command and control effort. But the way I look at it, as crafted, no offense to the draftsman, Section 5 would mean coordination. Section 17 would mean coordination. Are we not granting the DOFIL enough functions and powers to do its job? Parang kulang eh. Last January, the Department of Education entered into an agreement with its counterpart in China to train Philippine teachers to speak Mandarin. I think even without DFA approval, they can do that. But is the DOFIL allowed to exercise functions hitherto being done by DFA, entering into a bilateral agreement with its counterpart, perhaps in Kuwait, in Bahrain? Parang kulang. Is DFA willing to shed some of its powers? DFA?
Your Honor, good morning. Thank you for that question. Your Honor, at the moment, actually, the one country team approach really solves the problem because they are all agencies. It will be under the new department, the DOFIL, will have an attaché who is under the control and supervision of the ambassador. Actually, the work of the new department will encompass everything, Your Honor, from the pre-departure, the employment, and even the post-arrival orientation seminar and their employment itself. And of course, the whole country team, as of now, Your Honor, it involves not only the DOLE and the DFA, it also involves even the SWD. So it is very important, Your Honor, that everything is, you just have one policy, policy coordination. And of course, Your Honor, any agency that negotiates abroad has to coordinate with the Department of Foreign Affairs because for the representation abroad. As of now, we have 4 secretaries who are dealing with overseas Filipinos. Of course, we have Secretary Bello and Secretary Locsin, but we also have Secretary Mamao and Secretary Acosta. So you have 4 secretaries already, which to our mind, when you have many secretaries that have different policies, and not really different, but that have their own jurisdictions, it might be difficult. And Your Honor, I was following the discussion a while ago as to the other countries of origin that have specialized agencies. We just like to reiterate that the Philippines is the champion of the Global Compact for Migration. We are second to none when it comes to migration. We are the gold standard for migrant protection. When we speak abroad, everybody listens because we are cutting edge and we are pioneering. We have made, we think outside the box. So to a certain extent, it's like putting together what we already have. And even compared to all those countries, even having some department, we went beyond that because we already have a regularization of our undocumented workers in compliance with Objective 5 of the Global Compact. So, Your Honor, I think this new department will be able to put together the efforts of the different secretaries who are taking care of migration. And of course, DFA will be there to help. I think the challenge now is, Your Honor, is there are some posts abroad because we have 94 posts, embassies and consulates general. Some do not have OWA and some do not have POLO. So in the meantime, while we're waiting for all of those posts to be filled with ATN attaches, the DFA will in the meantime take over those functions, which we've been doing as of now, Your Honor. And at the end of the day, it's still the ambassador who has control and supervision. But of course, for the policy of foreign employment and as to the policy of migration itself, it will come from a single department and a single secretary, which so there won't be any confusion and there will not be any there will be more it's going to be more unified, Your Honor. Thank you very much.
So what you're saying, under USEC, is that while there is a one country approach system to be in place, at the end of the day, it will be the ambassador, pardon my language now, who is even not the Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs, who will be the final authority on what to do with situations involving our OFWs. It is very different from a committee which will have a final definitive authority. For instance, no offense to my co-lawyers here, I call the Supreme Court as a committee of 15 lawyers, but with final definitive authority. In this instance, you're referring to the 4 secretaries, but the final determination most probably will be greatly influenced by the ambassador. I now refer back again to my previous story, my first week in visiting EDSA Taft, 4 traffic enforcers groups, PNP, Highway Patrol, Pasay Traffic Enforcers, and MMDA, all doing the same mandates, but making the situation more chaotic. But my question really, Yusek, are you not willing to shed some of your powers? I understand that the DFA is the representative of the president in terms of foreign policy. But at this instance, when the president himself certified a measure giving DOFIL some amount of foreign policy leeway, isn't this a shift in the presidential determination and his wisdom that we cut some, splice some of the functions of the DFA and transfer it to DOFIL when it comes to OFW concerns?
Your Honor, actually, the DOFIL is already actually the third pillar of foreign policy is the protection of our nationals abroad, and much of it goes to DOFIL. What's going to be left with DFA is consular, and of course, at the end of the day, Your Honor, the ambassadors or and our congens will have to follow the law. I mean, what is placed there, and at the end of the day, the architect of foreign policy is still the president, and we just have to have some form of order in the embassies and in the consulates that the ambassador, of course, is or the congen is the one that's recognized by the foreign government. But technically, the protection of our nationals abroad, much of it already goes to DOFIL, Your Honor. And even when it comes to migration issues, it's going to be with the new department. It's just that we need to be able to coordinate, and the one who has actually, it's the highest ranking officer, Your Honor, in the post will be the ambassador, Your Honor, or in some cases the congens, Your Honor, for consulate general, for the consulates general.
If I may, Senator Tolentino, if I may,
Yes.
just one interjection, Senator Tolentino, thank you. Forgive me for asking this question, Yusek, no? But before I ask this question, let me just show you something, a slide of what is happening, for example, in the Middle East. When you talk about caring of our OFWs. Right now, in 2020, if you look at the mistreatment, maltreatment, 4,302. Contract violation, you look at 2016 to 2019, it averages about 7,000, no? Yung contract violation. Right now, it's 21,127. Look at the sexual harassment cases. This is just in Middle East. So just to point out to everyone here that there's so much room for improvement in taking care of our OFWs. Just to point that out. And to ask my question, Yusek Sara, I'd like to know the difference between attachés and foreign service officers. Kasi gusto lang natin malaman, yung attachés ba natin allowed to exercise consular functions stipulated under the Vienna Convention on Consular Relations, particularly on assisting Filipinos abroad. Kami ni Senator Win been talking about this for quite some time. Kasi yun yung gusto naming marinig from DFA. Ano yung magiging setup? Hindi ba tayo makakagambala doon? Papaano magiging smooth yung transition? Papaano masisiguro na at the end of the day talaga is maalagaan natin yung ating mga overseas Filipinos?
Your Honor, for that question, because it involves the Vienna Convention, I'd like, because I'm not a career officer of the Department of Foreign Affairs, I'm a political appointee, I'd like to pass it on to Assistant Secretary Rico Foss, who could explain really the structure of the Department of Foreign Affairs.
Yes, can we hear from him, sir?
Good morning, Senators. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Please proceed.
The designation of attaché is a diplomatic designation under the Vienna Convention on diplomatic relations as well as on diplomatic consular relations. The designation or the ranking of foreign service officer is a designation under our Foreign Service Act. So magkaiba po. The proposal under this law is to have the members of the DOFIL assigned abroad to be designated as attaché and not as consul, because a consul in the parlance of the diplomatic relations has a specific function. An attaché as a diplomatic rank in the Vienna Convention has its own meaning. It has its capacity to do diplomatic representation, being recognized diplomat and designated as an attaché. So,
ang point po natin, sir, wala hong magiging problema o may encounter na any recognition problem?
Pag ano, sir, Senator, pag ano ho sila, pag na-designate na po sila at recognize ng bansa na kung saan sila pinadala as diplomatic agent, and designated as an attaché, which is recognized under the Vienna Conventions, pwede po na sila makapag-represent po ng ating bansa relative to the expertise na dala-dala po nila. For example, yung mga designate natin as attaché commercial, attaché defense, attaché labor, attaché OFW or overseas Filipino, yun po yung kanilang specific designations and function. Pero these are also their specific diplomatic rank po, that they could represent the country in their specific areas.
Let's be more specific. For example, itong ATN, yung ATN office and DFA's consular officers, paano yung magiging delineation of responsibilities nila?
Sa ngayon po yung ginagawa po natin, yung halimbawa, kasi papasok po sa ating batas ngayon, yung, for example, yung mga labor attaché po natin, yung welfare attachés po natin sa mga, i-designate po silang attaché pa rin ho. Katulad po ng pag-designate po ng ibang consular officers po natin as attachés also.
Okay, thank you. Senator Tolentino, if you may want to continue, thank you. Senator Tolentino, we can't hear you. You're in mute mode.
Yes, to abbreviate this, Mr. Chairman, may I ask the DFA representative if she can provide this committee a copy of some proposals that would strengthen the bill insofar as shedding some of the functions of the DFA is concerned. That's what I have been asking for from the DFA, because eventually, as I foresee it, Mr. Chairman, eventually this bill will not just encompass the rights of our OFWs, but eventually we will be treading into health and well-being concerns, culture and arts, and my favorite, voting rights, especially for our overseas seamen, seafaring on seafaring vessels. So I think it's about time, as we are crafting the bill, for the DFA to be forthright and frank enough. Hanggang saan ba kayo po pwede? Hanggang saan ba, ano pa ba yung pwede nyong ibigay? Kasi narinig nyo ngayon, you heard that the highest ranking DOFIL personnel to be posted abroad will just be an attaché. Definitely an ambassador is higher than attaché. So we're not treading into the Vienna Convention grounds, but I think to really strengthen the bill, as what the DOLE did, giving up some of its functions, DFA should likewise do the same. And I'm referring to some bilateral agreements involving localities, and I'm referring to prosecution of cases, the direct involvement of DOFIL with police stations where our OFWs are being investigated, and even cultural matters. Malawak po ito. So can we have that? Can we get an assurance from the DFA that you will be providing that? Because we now realize a shift in the wisdom of the president to splice some of the powers of DFA and transfer it, allocate it to a newly created department. Can we have that?
Yes, Your Honor, definitely. But Your Honor, offhand,
Ma'am, beyond coordination and cooperation, because coordination and cooperation, these are just aspirational terms. After the department is created, we will foresee, we will realize that we have created a battle of different departments, a battle to get some turf, a battle of jurisdiction. We don't want that to happen, just like my EDSA days for traffic enforcement groups. So I think at this early stage, we have to have that.
Yes, Your Honor, will be submitting, but offhand, Your Honor, my office, the Office of the Undersecretary for Migrant Workers Affairs, will be subsumed. All its functions and even its 1.2 billion fund for assistance to nationals and legal assistance fund will go to the new department, Your Honor. So aside from that, Your Honor, if your other questions will be submitting, but most of it have been already mentioned by CABSEC Nograles, Your Honor, but we'll submit to your.
One more, the gist of my questioning is this. The representative of DOFIL abroad has to have that authority, has to have that respect coming from our executive, coming from Malacanang, that she is really the representative of the government there insofar as OFW concerns is on the table. So that's what I'm asking for. Not your usual transfer of functions, but the authority given to that. I am in favor of this department, but we have to have that authority, and that authority must be respected by the foreign host, and that foreign host must give the proper respect and coordination required, similar to an ambassador plenipotentiary power, so to speak. Can we have that?
Yes, Your Honor, we will comply, Your Honor.
Otherwise, magtuturuan to. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions.
Thank you.
I wish to participate in future hearings with the end in view of strengthening this bill, with the end in view of helping our kababayans abroad. Salamat po, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Senator Francis Tolentino. I think it's very important, very important yung binanggit po niyo, yung authority and respect that this new department should have. But let me again call the attention of DFA, DOLE, DSWD, and including CABSEC, no? Kasi in the certified bill that we got, it's not really clear as to how these 3 different types of attachés would be put into one office, no? The labor attaché under DOLE, social welfare attaché under DSWD, and the assistance to nationals unit under the DFA. So I think we have to do something about it. I hope you can give us your thoughts about it, because I don't think we are looking at one office that will take over these 3 attachés at the same time, no? Hopefully we'll get that next hearing. We give the floor now to Senator Nancy Binay. With the indulgence of Senator Nancy, I think si Secretary Mamao's raising his hand. Secretary Mamao, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. I would like to share my viewpoint as far as the issue on authority is concerned. I think this is one thing that has to be settled in the passage of this international labor migration governance law. As far as the power of the current officers of the Department of Labor are concerned, they don't have diplomatic, what we call consular powers. So this is one thing that should be considered by Congress, and that is even in the office of the President, and that is to give authority to representatives of this new department, the authority to perform as commissioned consuls, vice consuls, or consular agents of our government. With this authority, they can now perform the functions and responsibilities assigned to them. As of this time, if that will not be settled, there will be confusion of authority, and there will be no power as far as this department is concerned. Now, as pointed out by Senator Soberi, this department must have a very strong strong working department. Now, with this information of Assistant Secretary Force and Undersecretary Ariola, I think we are agreed that with the passage of this new department, creation of this department, the responsibilities of the Department of Foreign Affairs should be restricted to passporting, visa issuances, civil registration, authentication of documents, and building up the commercial expansion of our economy in foreign countries. We have commercial attaches over there who are under the supervision of the ambassador of our embassies in the different countries. So as far as the joint responsibilities of this department are concerned, that is assistance to nationals, diplomacy, and international labor and employment matters, management, this will be carved out definitely from the Department of Foreign Affairs. Because this is the only way for this department to be effective. You cannot work there at the current situation by representing our government as labor attaché or representative of our government as far as those assistants of the labor attaches in the different foreign assignments, because if they go to the police, if they go to the court, if they go to the Ministry of Justice, Ministry of Interior, and Ministry of Labor of these host countries, they will not be respected by these different offices. So they have to be clothed, and we will never, never send any of these representatives unless and until their commissions are approved by the host countries. That will be a conditional modality as far as the assignment of our representatives in the different foreign countries. They have to be commissioned as consuls, vice consuls, and consular agents for that matter, so that they can effectively perform the functions and responsibilities given to them under this new department that is going to be created in the future by Congress and then by the approval of the President. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Secretary. We give the floor to Senator Nancy Binay. Senator Nancy.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair?
Please
Hindi,
proceed.
siguro
Please proceed.
since we're on the topic of attachés, kay ASEC FOS, di ba yung pagtanggap ng attachés is still dependent on the host country?
Yes po, yes po, Senator.
And in fact, for example, sa Saudi Arabia, kahit gusto natin magdagdag ng labor attaché, kung hindi tayo pinapayagan ng host country, hindi tayo pwedeng magdagdag.
Tama po. Function po ng reciprocity din minsan eh. Tapos dapat pumayag po yung host government. Halimbawa, tama yung sabi niyo po, yung sa Eastern Province, for example, we wanted to establish our presence, a permanent presence. Hindi po tayo pinapayagan na magtayo po doon.
So which means we go back to the problem na kahit gusto nating tulungan by providing them services through an attaché, hindi natin pwedeng gawin kahit mag-create tayo ng DOFIL kasi nga we are dependent on the host country.
In a sense, limiting factor po kung ano po yung pinapayagan po ng host government. Kasi as diplomats, as we are, even if you are from other agency or not you're from DFA, you're bound to respect the local laws, the domestic laws of that country in the conduct of your work in that country. So that's a limitation. But as we know and as practiced by our diplomats and our colleagues abroad, talagang tinutulak po natin to na para mapaglimpuran po natin yung ating mga kababayan po na nangangailangan. So
and ASEC FOS, parang yung trabaho na yun still lies with DFA, convincing the host country to allow us to, whether it's a labor attaché or commercial attaché.
Yes po, sa ngayon po, no. Ang yan po ay lahat ay nakalatag po sa trabaho po ng Department of Foreign Affairs.
And ASEC FOS, yun na nga, babalik tayo dun sa creating false hope na hindi porket nagkaroon ng DOFIL, pwedeng magkaroon na ng labor attaché dun sa mga lugar na wala tayong labor attaché. For example nga, dun sa kaso ng Saudi Arabia.
Tama po kayo. Hindi po sa lahat ng pagkakataon na gusto natin maglagay po ng ating mga representatives, whether it's a labor attaché, whether it's a commercial attaché or a defense attaché, ay hindi po lahat ng pagkakataon na gusto natin ay pwede pong gagawin. At yun po ay depende sa pakipag-usap po natin doon po sa host government.
Okay. And di ba ho, kadalasan, kung if Secretary Bello or si Undersecretary Sara can answer, sorry. Kasi di ba kadalasan na nagiging problema talaga natin sa mga OFWs, itong mga domestic workers. Tama po ba? In fact, I think dun sa pinakitang slide ni Chair Joel kanina, yung mga welfare cases na yan involving domestic helpers. Tama po ba? I think Secretary Bello.
Yes, it's true, it's true.
Tama.
Yes, can I address, Your Honor, the concern of the Honorable Nancy Binay? Your Honor, maybe just for the record, the demarcation line between the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Department of Labor when it comes to overseas Filipino workers, we have jurisdiction, Your Honors. DOLE has jurisdiction over documented OFWs. If the OFW is undocumented, Your Honor, then she is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Foreign Affairs. When it comes to cases, Your Honor, DOLE has jurisdiction over cases involving employment issues. But when it comes to cases like criminal cases and other cases, Your Honor, it is under the jurisdiction of the Department of Foreign Affairs. Yun po ang demarcation line between the Department of Foreign Affairs and the Department of Labor. And so far, Your Honor, we have not found any difficulty in our coordination as far as performing our functions in relation to the welfare and interest of our OFWs.
So Secretary, diba, pagdating ho with the creation of DOFIL, ano mangyayari dito sa demarcation?
Tama na sila.
Dapat, Your Honor, may bigay na yung sole responsibility and authority DOLPHIL if we want DOLPHIL to succeed in protecting the interest and welfare of our OFWs. Thank you.
So para ho sa inyo, ilipat na yung both functions ng DOLE at ng DFA to DOFIL.
Yes, Your Honor.
For cases abroad.
Documented and undocumented.
Undocumented.
Basta it involves the interest and the problem of the OFW, dapat jurisdiction and authority of DOLPHIL, Your Honor. If we are going to expect DOLPHIL to do what is intended, and that is to protect the interest of our OFWs. Otherwise, magkakaroon ng sinasabi kanina ni Honorable Senator Francis Tolentino na magkakaroon ng problema kung sino maghahawak sa problema ng OFW. Mabuti once and for all, DOLPHIL should be clearly in charge of all problems involving our OFWs, Your Honor.
So not just OFWs, but overseas Filipinos, Your Honor. Overseas Filipinos.
Yes,
Okay,
Your Honor.
I think nagre-raise, Mr. Chair, si ASEC Foss and USEC Sara.
Yes, ASEC Foss, please.
Senator, we support that idea. No? In fact, it's in the bill now that the functions both of the ATN unit now under the DFA and the functions of POLO under DOLE or ILAB are merged. Mag-iisan lang po. So there's no distinction in terms of policy operational response to a distress call from a Filipino. And it is regardless now whether that Filipino is an OFW or an overseas Filipino. So wala po ng distinction. So as the term used by our Cabinet Secretary, it's really an amalgamation of not only of the budgets and the structure, but also of the functions and mandates of different agencies. In this particular case, in responding to welfare needs and distress call of our people abroad, regardless whether he is an OFW, an OF, a tourist, and a student, etc., would be one unit. That is the unit created under the Department of Filipinos or Department of OFW, whatever this department will be called later on. So it's really now institutionalizing what has been agreed upon in the joint manual of operations between the several agencies addressing the distress call of Filipinos abroad. So yun po yun ang gusto ho naming sabihin at dito sa batas na ho na.
Yes, ASEC, and idadagdag ko po doon, hindi lang yung ATN officers and the polos, labor attaches, pati yung welfare attaches ng DSWD na yung binanggit po natin kanina na kailangan nating pagtuunan ng pansin because in the certified measure, parang isa lang po yun. No? So we wanted your views on it para masiguro natin that this will work. Sige po, please proceed, Senator Nancy.
Okay. Sige, siguro, may nagre-raise hand si Yusek Ariola.
Mr. Chair,
I don't see anyone raising hands here, but yeah,
Yeah.
Yusek Sara, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, Senator Binay, we just like to reiterate also that the migration policy will be determined also by the new Department of Overseas Filipinos. It was DFA's position time and again because of the many abuses of our household service workers for us to review our migration policy, especially on the cases of upskilling, and for us to decide whether we still want to deploy overseas household service workers in certain parts of the world. I think the COVID-19 pandemic already gave us this reset because a lot of our OFWs are returning. So at the end of the day, it will be a department who will really determine where we're going. Since it's very difficult and we know very well when things go back to normal, there will be an influx of migration and we cannot really stop our OFWs from doing that. But it's also incumbent upon the new department to be able to determine how we could help them, because it's sometimes very difficult to go against culture or some very well entrenched practices of some countries, but it's also the time also that we have to have a very clear and single migration policy that will be followed by the new department. Thank you, Your Honor.
Sige, balik. Pero di ba, Yusek Sara, di ba dapat ngayon pa lang pinag-uusapan na natin kung ano yung magiging policy natin towards, lalo na din sa domestic helpers. Kasi alam naman natin lahat ng mga centers natin abroad, halos lahat na nakakaproblema ay yung mga domestic helpers. Yung polisiya na baka it's high time that we stop yung pag-allow ng mga domestic helpers natin magtrabaho abroad. In fact, Indonesia has done it. Ano ba yan? Natatalakay na ba yan? Kasi sa akin, I think, kaya nagkaroon ng panawagan to create another department is to address basically yung problema ng mga domestic helpers natin. Dahil sila talaga yung prone to abuse, prone to human trafficking. So at this point, napag-uusapan na ba yung polisiya to finally end itong migration for the domestic helpers? I don't know kung sila Cabsec Carlo or si Secretary Bello, kung napag-usapan na to as a policy even before we pass DOFIL.
Yeah, thank you, Senator Nancy. No? And just to follow up on that particular issue na nire-raise niya Senator Nancy as we flash on screen, for example, itong OFWs working in the Middle East, particularly domestic workers and low-skilled workers, they face the highest risk of exploitation, abuse, harassment, and labor-related issues. So, ang tanong talaga natin is, ayan, napag-uusapan po ba yan? Ano yung response natin? Paano natin ito ma-improve? Has there been a ban imposed o limit man lang by the POEA governing board on the deployment of vulnerable OFW occupational groups from entering these countries? So siguro ito yung ano namin ni Senator Nancy, paano natin ito ma-strengthen yung pag-address dito sa issue na ito with the establishment of a overseas Filipinos.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
siguro,
Yes,
yes, just to add, kasi sa tingin ko din, Mr. Chairman, kahit magkaroon pa tayo ng DOFIL, itong problema na to, ano lang magiging paulit-ulit lang. Ano natin, di ba, katulad na nga na nasabi ni Yusek Sara, cultural din to, yung kafala system, kahit naman mag-create tayo ng DOFIL, hindi mahihinto ng departamento yung kafala system. So, yun na nga, as a policy, moving forward, tsaka total naman, di ba, ang policy is not to send our kababayans abroad, but as much as possible, dito sila magtrabaho. Siguro, to take the first step, baka dapat umpisahan pagdating dito sa mga domestic helpers natin.
Yes, thank you, Senator Nancy. No? But just to point out kasi dun sa migrants law natin, Section 4 of RA 8042, yung POEA Governing Board, inauthorize po siya to allow the deployment of OFWs only in countries where the rights of Filipino migrant workers are protected. So by now, alam na natin yung kafala system, alam na natin kung ano yung mga nangyayari. Itong data na ito is happening in the Middle East. And then in Section 4 of RA 8042, it also provides that DFA, through its foreign post, should issue a certification to the POEA specifying if the host or receiving country possesses the following guarantees provided itong mga binanggit po natin. No? So ang ano natin is, na-implement ba to? I-improve ba ito? What do we expect if we establish a new department with regard to this particular issue?
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Secretary Bello, you're recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. And in response to the concern of Her Honor, Senator Nancy, we would like to inform the committee, Your Honors, the honorable members of the committee, that right now there is no deployment in Middle East where you just saw a high incident of violation of our overseas workers. We have suspended deployment in Kuwait. We have suspended deployment in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and also in the United Arab Emirates, Your Honor, for the reason that our OFW's rights and welfare are not recognized and well protected. In fact, in UAE, Your Honors, there is no valid deployment there because we have no existing bilateral agreement with the United Arab Emirates. In the case of the Kuwait, Your Honors, we have deployed, so suspended deployment there because of the high incident of maltreatment and abuses of our OFWs. So that's the reason, Your Honor, that there is no deployment now in the Middle East, Your Honor.
Thank you, Secretary Bello. Thank you.
Pero Secretary Bello, walang official deployment. Pero alam naman natin, I'm sure, Mr. Chairman, tumaas naman yung incidents ng human trafficking.
Ayun po.
Tama po ba?
Opo, hindi namin po kwan yun. Yung responsibility, Your Honor, may mga other agencies of government who are in charge with that case of illegal recruitment and
Human trafficking.
Opo, human trafficking, Your Honor. So, dapat iniiwasan yan.
And yung pag-create ba ng DOFIL will stop this practice?
Well, if we have a DOLPIL, a specific government agency that will address the problem of all OFWs, this may discourage people from abusing our OFWs because from henceforth, Your Honor, with DOLPIL, they can see to it that there will be no deployment in all countries where there is no bilateral agreement because it is the bilateral agreement, Your Honor, that provides sufficient protection for OFWs. Kailangan meron sila talaga yung standard employment contract. If you remember, Your Honor, when this case of the Mapeles happened, nag-declare agad ng ating Pangulo ng total deployment ban. And he lifted the deployment ban only after they signed a bilateral agreement where all the rights of our OFWs are well protected, Your Honor.
Pero Secretary, pero pwede rin nyo rin naman gawin yun, di ba? Ngayon, kahit walang DOFIL?
Pwede naman po, pero mas maganda kung mayroong focus agency, Your Honor.
Hindi, pero yung pag-ban ng deployment kasi walang bilateral agreement, pag-ban kasi may kafala system pa sila, hindi ho bang kayang gawin na yon ngayon ng DOLE? At kailangan pa hubang mag-create ng another department just to implement na kailangan may bilateral agreements?
Kaya naman po, Your Honors, but if you are talking of a focus agency, Your Honor, I think DOLPIL will serve as that focus agency na walang ibang ginawa kundi tutukan ang kalagayan ng ating mga OFWs and even our OFs. Malaking problema po yan, Your Honor. Malaki ang problema na yan. Even in the States, hindi natin nalalaman yung pupunta doon na estudyante, mag-aaral, kunyari, exchange, tawag doon? Exchange program. Pagdating doon, nagbebenta ng hotdog. Malawak itong problema ng mga OF sa OFW natin. Kaya kailangan talaga, Your Honor, ang isang departamento na walang ginawa kundi tutukan yung problema ng ating mga kababayan.
Siguro kay ASEC FOS, yung katulad doon ng banggit ni Chairman Joel kanina, na di ba dapat nagre-recommend kayo? Ginagawa na ba ngayon yun?
Yes, ma'am. We regularly send certification because it's required under 8042 as amended by RA 100.22 that we send certification whether or not first the country of destination has bilateral relations with us or they are signatory to multilateral or regional agreement protective of migrant workers, or if there are domestic laws protective of migrant workers, or there are efforts on their part to do that. No, I think this is the basis for the PUA governing board to decide as part of their decision-making process to decide whether or not to continue allowing deployment of migrant workers, Filipino migrant workers, to that destination country. So we do that regularly.
Meron na bang na-suspend kasi hindi niya nabigyan ng certification at the moment?
I'm not familiar with the data from PUA, but I think I would suspect that there would be some suspension or some adjustment in the deployment of OFWs in certain destination countries.
Mr. Chairman, baka pwede si POEA can answer that.
Yes, we want to hear from Admin Olalia. Sir, please.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The PUA Governing Board, headed by our Labor Secretary, meets regularly and decides on the policies that we will have to adopt on destination countries that do not meet the labor compliance of a destination country. Halimbawa po nito, yung UAE. Tama po yung sabi ni Secretary Bello po kanina, na hindi po inaalaw ngayon ang deployment ng HSW sa UAE dahil ayaw po nila ng ating standard employment contract. Another destination country, for example, is Lebanon. Hindi po tayo nagpapadala ng HSW sa Lebanon dahil po doon sa mga welfare cases at wala pa po tayong accepted and harmonized employment contract. For all the Middle East countries na meron po tayong bilateral labor agreements and who have domestic laws that protects our HSW, doon lang po tayo nagpapa-deploy ng ating HSW.
Okay. Siguro, Mr. Chairman, alam ko may marami pang magtatanong. Last question na lang. Kasi you said, Sarah, you mentioned na ano yun yung gold standard? Ano yung award na yan? Or recognition?
Your Honor, Mr. Chair, actually the Philippines is known to have the highest level of protection for our OFWs because even in our repatriation, our COVID response is characterized by response, repatriation, recovery, return, and reintegration, all paid for by the government. Or in cases of sea-based workers, the recruiters, actually, the local manning agencies. But to a certain extent, when it comes to migration, Your Honor, the Philippines is really known as an authority because we really protect, in fact, countries of destination are saying that the Philippines have a reputation for being very hardline negotiators. Because if you're good enough for the Philippines, you're going to be good enough for any country of origin. That's how strict we are when it comes to the protection of our migrant workers. That's why we are also a Global Compact for Migration champion. It just so happens, of course, we're doing well, but we can do better. And we're looking at this new department, the DOFIL, to be able to put everything together and so that we can do better, because when we have cases of abuse, we know very well that one abuse is one too many, and especially for household service workers. But that's why we're also very supportive of the countries of destination who are having reforms already, because they're also asking for support from countries of origin like the Philippines, because the governments are willing to change, but the resistance is coming from their populations and their business sector, because kafala also means that they will incur more expenses. So, and I think, Your Honor, one of the things that we should also focus on, the new department should focus on, is upskilling, because if our overseas workers, or they still plan to return, if they have other skills other than being household service workers, then they will be prone to less abuse, because most of our our abuse cases are done in the homes of the employers that we cannot enter. By the time we intervene, there's already abuse that has been done, which is very rare that happens if the employee is living outside the home of the employer. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Chairman, last question. Hindi, yung implementation nito, for example, OFW, yung proseso, how will it be different? For example, OFW ako na mag-a-apply abroad. With the creation of DOFIL, what will be the difference in my application?
Senator, if I may.
Please proceed.
Imagine mo, parang sa isang bahay na lang po sila pupunta. Hindi na pupunta sila po doon. Diba? Pag nag-apply po ako, ang pre-departure or pre-employment seminar is being done by POA. Diba? Ang pre-departure orientation seminar is being done by OWA and its secretary.
Pero as it was, ano yan? Kasi mag-1 o'clock na. Question lang. Kasi sabi mo, ibabahay na sa isa, but hindi naman bubuwagin ng POEA eh. In fact, it will be an attached agency. So kung sinasabi mo na yung pre-departure, hindi na magiging trabaho ng POEA, anong matitirang trabaho ng POEA?
Senator, ang laki pa rin po ng trabaho ng POEA with the regulations of overseas employment would still be the core mandate of the POEA, and the technical expertise of the people at the POEA would still be there. Siguro doon lang sa pag-streamline ng proseso, dahil sa isang departamento na ng lahat yan, sa isang kahit attached agency po, at saka doon sa organic, doon sa department, isang bahay lang o sila.
Hindi, pero as it was physically mas malaki magiging building ng POEA kaysa doon sa DOFIL. Tama po ba? Diba? Physically, mas malaki building ng POEA kaysa sa DOFIL. So I don't know kung may facility yung DOFIL to conduct ito mga pre-departure seminar. Tama po ba? So at the end of the day, gagawin pa rin ito sa POEA.
Ay, yung ating, ma'am, sa ano naman po yung as far as I know, and we could ask the POA for this, but I think the way they conduct their pre-employment seminars, they do it within coordination with the local governments at the provinces, at the local government. Hindi naman po doon sa building mismo ng POA. So in terms of physical structure, you're right. The POA has a bigger building for the non-existing building yet of the DOFIL. But as we go along, siguro naman po, and then we consider the importance of the work and the mandate of the DOFIL, if this is passed as a law, ako nananalig na magkakaroon po ng tamang bahay po yung DOFIL.
And then yung fees, kanino na ibabayad? May babayaran pa ba sila? O wala nang babayarang mga fees ngayon yung OFW? Kasi diba at the moment, may binabayaran sila sa POEA. Ngayon ba, Mr. Chairman, with the creation of the department, mawawala na ho ba ito? At will it be absorbed by the national government?
I think it's still the same. Maybe hear from Admin Olalia.
Yes, you're correct, Your Honor. It will always be the same. The fees that POA collects from our departing OFWs will be the same fees that the DOFIL will collect from the OFWs, Your Honor.
So, but technically, parang wala pa rin tayong ginagastos for our OFWs kasi maniningil pa rin tayo sa kanila. Tama ba, Mr. Chairman?
Tama po, Your Honor. Tama po.
Oh, kasi baka magkaroon din ng misconception yung mga OFWs natin na with the creation of the department, yung mga gastos na sinasagot nila ngayon will be absorbed by DOFIL.
May I address the question of the Honorable?
Hindi. Kasi Secretary, di ba, parang
The
devil
passionate
in the
Secretary
details.
of the Department of Labor and Employment is recognized.
Thank you, Your Honor. Actually, Your Honor, yung charging of fees from the OFWs is a matter of policy. Ngayon, kung under the proposed DOPIL bill, yung Secretary of DOPIL is also concurrently the chairman of the board of the POA, which is the present situation, Your Honor, they can come up with new policies na to make it easier for our OFWs to go abroad na i-waive yung fees from our OFWs, especially sa mga household service workers, Your Honor. It's a matter of policy, Your Honor.
Yun na, Mr. Chairman, kasi based on sa presentation ni Cabse Carlo kanina, hindi naman nabuwag yung OWA tsaka POEA. So, paano ngayon yun? Pag kunyari, di ba, at the moment kasi yung mga OFWs natin na miyembro, di ba, may nakukuha silang benepisyo sa POEA tsaka sa OWA. So, with the creation of DOFIL, hindi na ho sila pupunta sa POEA and OWA to claim their benefits at DOFIL na yung magpa-process. Magiging ganun ho ba yung proseso? Kasi nga hindi naman ho nabuwag yung dalawang ahensya.
It will be, Senator Nancy, it will be an attached agency of the new department, both OWA and the POEA. So it will just be the same, yes.
Walang
so same lang.
Wala
Kasi
silang benefits na makukuha from POEA. It is only from OWA where they get benefits, especially if you are an active OWA member. Meron kang mga benefits under their reintegration program, Your Honor, which involves livelihood assistance, scholarship assistance, at pwede pa nga mangutang doon pa ng up to 1 million, Your Honor, if you can show to the OWA na kaya mong pumasok sa ganung negosyo. Maraming programa ang OWA para sa mga OFWs. Sa POA po, wala po kasi it's a regulatory body, Your Honor.
Yeah. Pero kasi Mr. Chairman, doon tayo babalik ulit, di ba? Isa doon sa reklamo ng mga OFWs natin na parang ang dami nilang pinupuntahan. So dito parang ganun pa rin. Kailangan pa rin nila punta sa OWA, kailangan din nila mag-claim sa DOFIL. Magiging ganun ho ba yung sistema? Dahil, in fact, di ba for example, yung 4 billion na pondo ng NCRO, mapupunta dun sa DOFIL Tapos yung OWA, meron ding reintegration program. So how will it work?
Yung OWA, Your Honor, parang yan ang welfare agency ng ng DOLPHIL. Siya parang ganoon din yan. Right now, DOLE ang parang mother ng OWA. And OWA holds the funds for our OFWs, especially our returning OFWs.
So, kaya saan ho pupunta, saan ho mag-a-apply yung OFW? Kasi isa nga ho doon yun sa reklamo, di ba, na parang iba-ibang ahensya ang pinupuntahan nila. But with this one, since magiging parang mother office na yung DOFIL, si OFW ba sa DOFIL na lang mag-a-apply to claim for their OWA benefits? Or separate din?
Pwede, Your Honor, pwede directly sa DOLPHIL, pwede rin sa OWA. And in fact, Your Honor, if you are an OWA member, You do not even have to apply. OWA will immediately deliver the assistance or the program for your benefit.
Pero siguro, Mr. Chairman, yun na lang baka kailangan ayusin yung detalye na para technically dalawa pa rin may dalawang ahensya pa rin nakakausapin yung OFWs natin. Siguro maybe in another hearing baka or in the TWG for the bill baka mas maaayos itong mga ganitong issue. And siguro just to add, kay Yusek Sara, di ba, the mere fact that you were able to attain yung gold standard without creating another department, it means the job is already being done. Yun lang, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Senator Migs, please.
Yeah, just exactly my point nung pinoint out ni Senator Nancy. Baka ganun pa rin ang serbisyo, medyo mahina, bago lang ang pangalan. Meron na tayong departamento. Kaya nga, yan ang kailangan natin i-avoid, mga secretaries and undersecretaries. We have to make, when in the creation of this department, we have to make sure we streamline the service. Or else, ganun pa rin ang mangyayari. Tama po talaga pinoint out ni Senator Nancy dyan. So I'm with her on that, on how we can streamline the service. And one question lang, Chairman, before I move on. I don't know who can answer this, the POEA or the OWA. That large building there in EDSA, this is very important because naghanap po tayo ng bahay para dito sa DOFIL na ito. The large building there in EDSA that says OWA under, is that for OWA alone? Is it utilized all floors? May I find out how many stories is that, Your Honors? Sino po makasagot sa akin dyan on the building of OWA in EDSA Corner, Ortigas? Sino po may-ari ng building na po yan? Can anybody answer me, sir?
Mr. Chair, can I?
Please proceed.
POA Administrator po. Your Honor, you're talking about the POA building located at Ortigas Corner, EDSA.
Yes, that's correct.
It's a 7th-floor building, more than 1,000 square meter po yung area, and it is a property owned by POEA. And apart from this property owned by the POA, sir, meron pong real estate property ang POEA dito po sa may OSH. Kung alam po ninyo yung along North Avenue, Apo, corner Agham Road. That's a, if I'm not mistaken, that's a 2-hectare lot. Pag-aari din po ng POEA.
Okay. Doon lang, are you the head of the OWA or POEA? Can you identify yourself, sir? Kasi nakalabas doon, Secretary Bello pa rin sa iyong TV screen. You are USEC or?
Yes, sir. I am POEA Administrator Bernard Olalia po.
Okay, thank you, Administrator. Doon sa building na, so dyan po kayo nag-office administrator sa building in EDSA Corner, Ortigas.
Yes, Your Honor. It's a Blas Ople building po.
Yes, we see it all the time. It's actually a monument whenever you, I mean, it's a landmark whenever you see it on EDSA. That building is totally occupied by OWA personnel and POEA personnel from the top floor to the bottom.
Only POEA personnel, Your Honor.
So, kompleto, ginagamit po ninyo 100% yung building?
Opo, we house there around 300 personnel. Doon po
300
sa
personnel.
Yes po.
So, puno po yan. Hindi po yan pinapa-lease out sa ibang kumpanya, pinapa-lease out sa private sector. Puno po ginagamit niyo yung 7 stories na yan.
That's correct, Your Honor. Tama po.
Yeah. Thank you. I was just asking, Chairman, because if you're looking for an immediate area for the Department of Filipino Overseas Workers, that could be one possible site, no? But then I believe it's being utilized fully by OWA and POE personnel. But maybe you can retrofit for the meantime, Chairman, habang wala pa tayong bahay para sa Department of Filipino Overseas Workers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, our majority floor leader, and I would also join him and Senator Nancy as earlier stated in our opening statement in the deliberation of this Department of Overseas Filipinos. let us reiterate and emphasize once again for the end time na hindi po ito simpleng reorganization o parang lipat bahay lang ng mga ahensya sa isang bagong bubong. Hindi rin po ito labeling exercise na mistulang pagpapalit lamang ng karatula ng pangalan. No? We expect more. We wanted to guarantee that we will be better. I think at least at this time, I'll be given a chance to ask questions. And in this series of hearings that we are going to do, we wanted to somehow frame it in three different parts. One is the pre-deployment, and then second would be the deployment process, and then the post-deployment. No? So kanina ang daming natanong about pre-deployment, and I thank my colleagues for raising those issues. At let me ask our friends from Dole family, and I admire, I texted Secretary Bello and congratulate him for being passionate about this particular measure that we are discussing today. And he made mention a while ago about the challenges, no, of the third country recruitment, illegal recruitment, and now we're looking at a spike in the undocumented workers. Let me just show you this slide that was reported to this office. Pag tinignan po natin yung 2019 and 2020 ng mga undocumented Filipinos, no, Asia Pacific, Middle East, Europe, and Americas, pag tinignan po natin, tumaas pa po itong pandemya, itong 2020, no, from January to July, from 1,553,373 in 2019, itong 2020, 1,580,684. Umangat pa ho ng 27,311. And please bear in mind that this data that we are talking about is not the true state of undocumented Filipinos that we have right now, no? Because this particular number pertains only to those Filipinos who actually ask for help, forced to report because they are probably in trouble or they were arrested. So, pag tinignan po natin ito, no, malaki pa rin, no? Ang tanong natin na Secretary, itong increase of undocumented workers, na pinpoint po ba natin ano yung mga factors behind the increase? And perhaps we'd like to pose this question: what measures have the DOLE and POEA taken to register the and document these undocumented workers abroad? Dahil it looks like with this pandemic, parang ang ina-expect natin ay tataas pa po ito.
Your Honor, as far as the undocumented OFWs concerned, Your Honor, we expect a rise, an increase in the undocumented workers trying to register now because, you know, Your Honor, because of the pandemic, they would like to take advantage of our repatriation program. Kaya marami po sa kanila na dati nagtatago, undocumented, bigla na lang sila nagre-register dahil gusto po nila mapasama doon sa ating repatriation program and other benefits, Your Honor. Kasi alam niyo po, Your Honor, under yung ACA program namin for the OFWs, ito yung apot kamay sa pagtulong, ACA for short, we gave this one-time cash assistance to all OFWs who were displaced because of COVID-19. Ngayon, originally, Your Honors, we gave it only to documented OFWs. But when we found out na meron pa rin tayong mga kababayan na undocumented, we also included them in the benefits. That is why marami pong nag-register bigla. Ayun po ang dahilan bakit tumaas ang number of undocumented workers, Your Honor.
At kaya sinasabi rin po kulang po yung pondo ng AKAP.
Hindi po, Your Honor, meron pa kaming mga 400 million na nandiyan po and we are still trying to pay out yung mga OFWs natin. Mayroon lang tayong difficulties doon sa mga repatriate, Your Honor, kasi nasa kanilang probinsya na and mahirap makontak sila. Yung mga iba, hindi po marunong mag-online application, hindi marunong magkuha ng itong mga remittance center, kaya nahihirapan tayo. But still, Administrator Cagdac and Director Bisperaso of our iLab are busy looking for them and giving them what is due them under the program, Your Honor.
Well, thank you, Secretary. No, and let me take this opportunity to commend the entire department headed by Secretary Bello, of course, Admin Hans. Buhay na patotoo po ako doon sa pagtatrabaho nila at talagang yung walang sawang pag-walk ng extra mile just to take care of our OFWs. But Secretary, I remember you saying the importance of having yung mga binabanggit natin kanina, yung bilateral labor agreements, no, especially doon sa mga maraming Filipinos abroad. And to talk about this particular measure that we are deliberating upon, can you give us your views kung paano ito ipagpapatuloy? At I'm sure you would say dapat ipagpatuloy ito and more focus at perhaps become more aggressive in having these bilateral agreements. Can you give us your views?
Yes, Your Honor. Probably because our steadfastness in not allowing the deployment of our OFWs to countries where we have no bilateral agreement, we are pleased to mention now, Your Honor, na marami ng countries na makikipag-enter sa atin ng bilateral agreement. In fact, early this month, March 1 and 2, the high-level delegation from the United Arab Emirates are coming for the purpose of finalizing yung bilateral agreement with them. We also received communication from Russia, Your Honor, to negotiate with us also a bilateral agreement. So with Canada, Your Honor, and mentioning 3 other countries in Eastern Europe, we have Romania, Poland, and UK also, Your Honor, because they are very much interested in getting their exemption from our deployment cap of 5,000 a year, Your Honor. So marami pong na-realize nila that the President is serious in not deploying our OFWs in countries where we have no bilateral agreement, because it is in conditions like this that our OFWs are sometimes subjected to non-payment of salaries, non-observance of the usual benefits of our workers, and so on, Your Honor.
Thank you, Secretary Bello. Baka pag napasa ho itong batas na to, maraming mag-suggest na kayo ang mag-head ng departamentong ito. But kidding aside, Secretary, let me point this out, no, from DOLE to DFA, OWA, and POEA. The following data gaps and challenges were identified in, if you would recall, the 2017 presentation by the Philippine Statistics Authority. May we know, has there been any progress in addressing the said data sharing gaps? Kung meron po, what are these? Kasi natandaan niyo po, nung mga nakaraang taon, nagkaroon tayo ng pagdinig at dun sa ating pagdinig, naging napaka-disappointing po na yung status of the shared government information system for migration under or mandated by the Migrant Workers Act ay hindi po nangyayari. So perhaps if we could get an answer, a status report probably from DOLE or DFA with regard to this data sharing among agencies regarding our OFW related data.
Thank you, Your Honor. For that matter, Your Honor, may I request our Director of the International Labor Affairs Bureau to give you a short, quick briefing on it, Your Honor.
Sige po,
Good afternoon.
from our iLab, ma'am, please, you're recognized. Please proceed.
Thank you po, Mr. Chair. At present po, yes, meron pong mga systems na ginagamit po ang OWA, ang POEA at ang DOLE po para po monitor ang kondisyon ng ating mga OFWs. But since po doon sa instruction po ng ating Mr. Chair na magkaroon po na tayo ng common data sharing hub for our systems po sa tatlong ahensya na ito, nagsabit na po kami ng project proposal for a common system po na mag-govern po sa mga data po ng POEA, ng DOLE at ng OWA. So sa ngayon po we are in the process of finalizing the terms of reference of the system that will unify yung mga data po ng tatlong ahensya, sir. That's all po. Thank you po,
So
Mr.
ma'am, you're still finalizing, meaning hindi pa po tapos.
Opo.
So you're still finalizing. What about DFA and the other agencies?
Your Honor, can Administrator Kapdak of OWA add something to that, Your Honor?
Yes, please. Admin Hans, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you po, Mr. Chair and Secretary and members of the committee. Yung sa number 3 po, yung returning migrants, perhaps one silver lining dito sa pandemic is na-enhance yung database ng returning OFWs. Currently, we have around 500,000 plus in our database of returning OFWs in the course of the pandemic, which is tumatakbo na po ng more than 1 year. So, ang nangyayari po ngayon ay, halimbawa, to give an example, because of this database ng returning OFWs in the pandemic, ay nakikita po ng, halimbawa, DOH, Bureau of Quarantine, in terms of yung monitoring, yung health conditions at yung swab testing ng ating OFWs. Yung pong DILG at yung mga LGUs naka-enroll po so that they can also be adequately informed, the LGUs, about the returning OFWs, their respective constituencies. And then, yun pong ating, in terms of yung reintegration, we're already currently reaching out to agriculture and trade and industry, the departments, and also the possibility of reaching out to TESDA. We're currently working on that, Mr. Chair, para po maagapan yung pangangailangan ng data mula sa mga ahensya na banggit ko at mabigyan ng intervention in terms of reintegration. Hindi rin ho namin nakakalimutan yung comment ni Senator Aimee nung budget hearing namin, kung saan na-point out ni Senator Aimee yung need na iduktong din yung aming database sa employment facilitation, yung mga job portals. So just to assure the good Senator na this is currently ongoing. We are reaching out to the relevant agencies in the DOLE as well as those outside the DOLE para po ma-address yung employment needs, hindi lang ho yung negosyo, kundi yung empleyo na options, na portals na pwedeng puntahan ng OFW. So, all told, Mr. Chair, this is a work in progress. But again, the silver lining is na-enhance yung sharing ng databases natin. At we are already in a step in the right direction along these lines. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Admin Hans. Can we hear from the Department of Foreign Affairs regarding this particular issue? Because if I get it right, as I listen very attentively to what Admin Hans and our iLab representative mentioned a while ago, it's still work in progress, finalizing, etc. How about DFA? Where are we on this?
Your Honor, the DFA has data. Of course, we send that to our biannual report to Congress. However, the Migrant Workers Act of 1995 contemplates an integrated data for all government agencies on migration. That to date is still inexistent. And that is one of the goals, to have one DOFIL so that the data can be put together from all agencies in the migration team, because DOLE and its agencies have their data, we have our own data, and CFO have their own. But as to one single data collection, we do not have that at the moment. I think it's precisely because we are different agencies, Your Honor. I also like to point out that in the Global Compact for Migration, one of our commitments is to have proper data, which to consolidated data, which we do not have at the moment. And I just like to very briefly, Your Honor, as to the importance of DOFIL, since we already adopted the Global Compact for Migration, there are many provisions there on fair and ethical recruitment, where it says that on the question of Senator Binay a while ago, as the employer pays principle, that nobody has to pay for overseas employment. It's one of the principles there that has to be also enhanced. And since it's an extraordinary time that needs an extraordinary measure, DOFIL should be able to address not only the pandemic, Your Honor, but also how to begin when things go back to normal. Thank you, Your Honor.
Well, thank you, Yusek Sara, but I cannot help also but again be disappointed that when you talk about data sharing, it has been almost 11 years, Your Honor, since the enactment of RA 10022, amending our Migrant Workers Act. Sadly, our agencies have not successfully implemented this shared government information system. And this is the reason perhaps why we should also push for this measure to have and build a department because our agencies are merely not coordinating with each other, so we can have a focus. Last issue that I'd like to raise on the post deployment part of our hearing. On the average, let me ask POEA, on the average, how long does it take for POEA to evaluate the documents submitted by direct hire and agency hired applicants? I mean, what part of the pre-employment or pre-departure process takes the longest for a client to complete? Gusto natin malaman kung meron tayong mga programs para mapabilis ito. Kasi tinitingnan natin itong, if I may show you this particular slide, itong checklist requirements for direct hire application for land-based OFWs. Napakadami ho, no? Yung phase 1, 12 po yan. From passport to visa to iba-iba ho, diploma, transcript of records, PRC license, curriculum vitae, etc. You have phase 2, 4 po yan. Valid medical certificate, pre-employment orientation seminar, pre-deployment orientation seminar, POEA clearance. Tapos yung number 4, 16 po yan no, sir? Pag tinitingnan po natin, alam niyo kung ako yung aplikante at mahina-hina ang loob ko, titignan ko ho ito at nakakarinig ka ng mga fixers around you, baka hindi ka na pumunta sa ganitong proseso at maghanap ka ng fixer at maging illegal worker ka na lang no, sa ibang bansa. Do we even evaluate this? And again, going back to my question, yung average po, no, how long does it take for the agency ng POEA to evaluate the documents submitted by direct hire and agency hired applicants? Admin Olalia.
Yeah, may I reply, Your Honor? Before I reply on this process cycle time, may I refer back to the database integration? I'm happy to share, Your Honor, that POEA has an existing database sharing agreement with the Bureau of Immigration. Lahat po ng umaalis nating OFW na may OEC, those who are regular and documented, goes to the Bureau of Immigration, shows their OEC, at lahat po yun natatrack po natin. Kaya po yung bilang ng mga umaalis po nating OFW are properly documented and we have the exact numbers. Real time po ito, Your Honor. Real time.
Yes, and I hope hindi lang ho sa Bureau of Immigration because hindi yun ang ini-envision ng batas na ating ipinasa po dito sa Kongreso. Sige, please proceed.
Okay. With respect to the process cycle time of our direct hires, agency hires, and government hires, we are happy also to report, Your Honor, that we are under an ISO 9001-2015. Lahat po ng process flow po niyan is naka-coordinate po lahat yan sa aming ISO. So we are being assessed every now and then. Ang average po niyan, Your Honor, is 7 days. No? Once na may nag-apply po sa aming direct hire division, yung pong pagpoproseso ng lahat ng papers takes at least 7 days, more or less po. Yun pong ating agency hire, we're also happy to note that we already launched an online processing of all our deployment, except for those that involves manual evaluation like HSWs and low skill. Doon po sa C-base natin, meron din pong online facility lahat ng mga manning agencies. Mabilis na po ang pagpoproseso at pagde-deploy po ng ating mga seafarers in coordination with the principle that we have to establish a green lane of deployment for both land-based and sea-based, Your Honor.
Thank you, Admin Olalia. No? The bottom line of our hearing today is to ensure that we'll be able to serve our overseas Filipinos, particularly our OFWs, in the best way possible. No? But if you will give us 7 days to verify, 1 week po para matignan itong mga documents na nire-require po natin. And at the same time, if you look at the requirements, for example, diploma and transcript of records, i-verify mo yung diploma and transcript of records, pero na-verify mo din yung isang hiningi mong requirement na NC2 and PRC license. Kung may PRC license ka, di dapat na-check na rin ng PRC bago nakapag-exam yan na meron silang diploma at transcript of records. You go to another point here, curriculum vitae, resume. Kailangan to with all these requirements. What does that have to do with curriculum vitae, resume, with all these requirements? Don't you think that this is way too much, Admin Olalia? I mean, do you even evaluate itong mga checklist requirements natin?
Your Honor, under the ease of doing business, nagkaroon po kami ng technical working group to study on how to lessen the bureaucracy in the processing of the deployment of our OFWs. And ito po ang goal namin, pabilisin ang deployment. Kaya po at the start of the Duterte administration and upon the instruction of our Labor Secretary, nilaunch po namin yung one-stop service center for OFWs. Meaning to say, lahat po ng interagencies that deals with the deployment process are housed under one roof para mapabilis po at mapadali yung pag-issue ng ating OEC. So this is a continuing process for us in order to give an efficient delivery of our services, Your Honor.
So I hope, if I'm getting it correct, this is a work in progress. We are evaluating and we wanted to make sure na itong mga nakalista po dito, ito yung mga talagang kailangan, no? At kung mapapabilis po natin itong verification, we would appreciate it. I have a lot of questions pa, but the session hall would need to be vacated for cleaning before the session. Let me thank again everyone here with us, still with us online, our secretaries who participated. Of course, our Senate Minority Floor Leader, Senate Majority Floor Leader, Senator Amy Marcos. If there are any other comments, and I can see some resource persons who are still with us who might wanted to say something, but please
Chairman?
feel free to give your position, paper, and anything that you would like to add up with regard to what we have discussed today and in the coming hearings. Yes, the Majority Leader is raising his hand.
Thank you.
Majority Leader, please.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. First of all, I want to thank you for calling for this hearing. You have really been steadfast in pushing for the welfare of our overseas Filipino workers. We want to put that front and center. And also maybe in the succeeding hearings, I know you split this up, Chairman, to 3 hearings. I believe one is for all the government agencies, that's today. And I believe on the next hearing, you'll have other stakeholders. Maybe request lang the cabinet secretaries or those who have authority from the departments who can answer on the succeeding meetings to attend, because there might be concerns from other stakeholders. For example, OFWs themselves talking about the problems that they're facing. We can also be able to ask that follow-up question with the departments in charge on what they're trying to do to correct this, Mr. Chair, if that's all right. For the
Yes,
succeeding hearings.
Yes, we will do that. Thank you very much, Majority Floor Leader. And as earlier mentioned, we divide this into three. Doesn't necessarily mean that there will only be 3 hearings. It can be extended. Pwede ring matapos or makover natin lahat into hearings. But right now, even we talk about the pre-deployment processes. Mukhang may mga ilang questions pa po tayo. But next hearing, of course, we will invite also different OFW associations, and we have gotten their position papers and yung mga suggestions po nila. We will also tackle that, and we'll start tackling also itong deployment, no, itong welfare, legal, and financial assistance to OFWs, especially displaced OFWs, yung monitoring working conditions of workers, regulation of foreign recruitment agencies abroad, etc. So yun naman po yung pagtutuunan natin ng pansin. And of course, yung hindi pa po natin na ilang na-touch doon sa pre-deployment. And then yung third part po, yung syempre yung post-deployment, and we're very interested doon sa reintegration program natin on what we can do para masiguro natin na pagbalik ng ating mga kababayan, una, yung polisiya na hindi natin sila gustong umalis ng bansa. At pangalawa, yung pag-alis nila, we make sure na makakatulong din sila pagbalik nila, yung transfer of technology, etc. I can see Senator Tolentino raising his hand. Yes, Senator Tolentino,
Mr.
you're recognized.
Just a query directed to the DFA. When do we expect the paper as to the proposal on how to strengthen the bill, Mr. Chairman?
I'm sorry, Senator Tolentino, you're directing your question to
DFA. When do we expect the paper?
Okay, DFA, Yusek Sara.
Your Honor, we are going to submit, if with the indulgence of the chair, within the week, Your Honor.
Would that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Well, in closing, let me say na tayo po ay natutuwa sa araw na ito, at muli natin napag-usapan ang mga mahalagang bagay na mga concerns po ng ating mga kababayan outside the country, not only our overseas Filipino workers but overseas Filipinos. Nakakalungkot lang pong makita noon ang walang humpay na paalamanan ng ating mga kababayan sa NAIA, pero lalo na po ngayong nagbabalik bayan sila, walang kaanak na sumasalubong, halos walang dalang pasalubong at walang katiyakan na makakabalik pa po abroad. Oo nga po, hindi naman halos naapektuhan ng pandemya ang remittances noong 2020, pero napapaisip po tayo kung bakit. Dahil ba mas marami ang biglang nakauwi o nag-alala yung mga kamag-anak na nasa abroad kaya nagpadala? Ganito pa rin kaya ngayong 2021 at sa mga susunod na taon? Again, isa po sa bawat 10 Pilipino ay nasa ibayong dagat. Ang 1/4 po ng ating labor force ay mga OFWs. Ang laki po ng ambag nila sa ating national pride at lalo na sa ekonomiya. Kaya mahirap pong hindi sabihin hindi kailangan ng hiwalay na ahensya o bureau o authority o departamento for overseas Filipinos na tututok po 24/7 sa lahat ng concerns ng ating mga kababayan. That's why we probably need the DOFIL to address 5 R's: red tape, regulation, recruitment, repatriation, and reintegration. So para po mangyari ito, ulitin ko po, ang gusto po nating mangyari sa DOFIL ay hindi lang parang lipat bahay, hindi lang relabeling exercise, hindi lang pagpapalit ng karatula ng pangalan. Dapat po itong bigyan ng mandato to amalgate functions, gaya ng sinasabi po natin about the 3 types of attachés na dapat mailagay natin under one office at iba pang overlapping functions na binanggit po ng ating mga kasamahan dito sa Senado. Itatanong ko po muli, Kailangan po ba talaga o napapanahon po ba talaga na magtatag tayo ng bagong ahensya para sa mga Filipinos overseas? Kailangan po ba talaga ng department o simpleng authority lang? Gaya ng sinasabi ni Senator Amy, yung pong mga different models that we talk about, yung Nepal, yung Sri Lanka at yung India, nabanggit po natin. Mapag-aralan po natin gusto at makita po natin what is best for us. Let me emphasize, now that the President himself has certified this measure as an urgent measure, we are duty-bound to push for DOFIL not to encourage migration for work, but to address the plight of our kababayans abroad, and most especially those coming home because of the pandemic. Sa mga kababayan po natin, sa apat na sulok ng daigdig na nakatutok sa pagdidig na ito, maraming salamat. Hindi po natin layuning gawing polisiya ang pagpapaalis sa ating mga kababayan. Gusto po natin na dito po kayo sa Pilipinas, makapagtrabaho, magtrabaho kasama ang inyong pamilya at mahal sa buhay. Subalit alam po natin na hindi ito makatotohanan sa ngayon, ngunit narito po tayo para gumawa ng paraan para mangyari yung ating pangarap. Kaya gusto ko pong ipagdiinan muli na may limitasyon po ang panukalang batas na ito. May mandatory review after 10 years at responsibilidad po ng inyong Kongreso at Senado na i-review po kung kailangan pa ito, kung hindi na ay i-abolish din ang itatatag na DOFIL. So muli, maraming salamat sa bawat isa na naririto at pagpalain tayong lahat ng ating Panginoong Diyos. This joint committee hearing is hereby suspended. Thank you. Thank you everyone. Thank you dear colleagues. Thank you Sec Carlo,